All righty. Welcome back to the HPP podcast. I'm Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Our last episode featured an interview with Richmond star forward Tyler Burton as we discuss a handful of NBA prospects and some NBA news. You can listen to that episode or any other HPP episode at hoopsprospects.com. Please check it out. Today, I'm joined by Drew Parton and Maverick Swenson. This is our first episode of Season 2 of HPP. We'll be previewing the Atlantic and Southeast divisions of the NBA. Later, we'll be joined by Chase Hughes, who covers the Washington Wizards for NBC Sports. This is also Maverick's first show. Mav, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everyone. My name is Maverick. I'm a current Texas A&M student studying sport management, and I am going to be graduating this winter. Very excited.
Okay. All righty. He's making a big assumption he's graduating. First, he has to get a passing grade from his internship here.
I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Just a joke. All right. Okay, so let's start by discussing some NBA news. We'll start off by probably the last decent free agent out there, I would say. Dennis Schroeder signed a one-year deal with the Lakers. We were talking about the Lakers last week, adding Patrick Beverley. Now they add another point guard. Drew, I'll let you start off. What are your thoughts on this?
This is putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. For the Lakers. I mean, look, obviously, if, for people who watch, if you watch FIBA, the Euro basket qualifiers and everything, Schroeder was arguably one of the best players there. I think he was averaging 22 points, 7 assists. So, there's talent there. But, I mean, we've already seen this show before. He was a Laker not 2 seasons ago, had the issues with the contract negotiation where he bet on himself and lost horribly. So, I think what the Lakers are doing is they're preparing to just get rid of Russ in any way possible. You added Beverly, you added Schroeder. They kind of give you two different things. One is a defensive-oriented kind of gritty guard. The other is more of a scoring hybrid playmaker. They both do things at an okay level, but I think, this is just them getting ready to get rid of Russ, or at least try to. I don't really love the move. I mean, it doesn't move the needle for me anyway. What the Lakers need are athletic perimeter 3-and-D wings that can hit the three ball at a good clip, that can defend at a high level, and that are young enough to be able to get through a whole season and not get banged up. Schroeder doesn't move that needle at all in any direction like that. So, he might give them 15 points and 5 assists. That's pretty much what he gave them 2 years ago, and that didn't end well for them. So, this is, like I said, this is a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. It's better than nothing, but you're still probably going to die.
Right. Maverick, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that. Schroeder was excellent when he played for Germany this summer. He's arguably one of the best players on one of the best teams. I've been hearing that they're going to play Schroeder and Russ on the court at the same time. They're going to be the starting lineup together. Like he was saying, it's just a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. It's not going to make that big of a difference. If you do move Russ for some shooters and maybe how much value are going to get out of Russ at this point? I mean, maybe it makes more sense, but for right now, the shot creation that Schroeder provides is non-existent because there's not enough spacing for him to even get to the cup and create for others.
Yeah, I just find it curious because when you look over the Lakers roster, you would think that really what they could use is, assuming they're going to keep Russell. And I would think, I should have noted who wrote it, but somebody in The Athletic wrote an article recently saying, Russ is, there for this year. And maybe that's not so bad because his contract's expiring and the Lakers get to keep a few draft picks, which they never have. So I got all that. And they also stated reasons why, he thought that Russell would be better fit for the Lakers with Derek Ham, now the coach. I get all that. And so if that's true, though, then why do you sign Schroeder. I just don't. I don't quite understand why you'd bring in. If anything, they need some bigger bodies. And maybe we'll talk about that a little later. Another problem the Lakers have, and you guys definitely have never been shot by a shotgun, because if it's loaded with birdshot, you could once the pellets are taken out, you can actually survive with Band-Aids on all those holes. But that's the thing with the Lakers. That's what they remind me of. Somebody's been shot with birdshot, is that they have holes all over the place, and not enough Band-Aids. And so anyway, the next big piece of news this week was Bojan Bogdanovic was traded to the Pistons. Help me out here. This trade was for
Kelly Olynyk with somebody. Right, I think a draft pick.
Saban Lee.
Yes. Saban Lee.
And they basically, the Pistons also sent the cash. It was equivalent to Saban Lee's salary. So they, they basically said, "Here's Saban Lee, and here's the money to pay him." So they don't even have to worry about paying him. So they basically can take a look at Saban. And actually, I've always been surprised that Saban didn't get more playing time with the Pistons, because he always seems to do well when he's out there, at least offensively, and he lights it up in the G League usually. So I think he has a chance to make Utah squad. But in Olynyk for Bogdanovic, I don't know. I mean, that seems pretty even to me, depending on what you're looking for. Anybody else have any thoughts on this trade?
I definitely think the Pistons get over on this one in terms of what they need. Like, Bogdanovic is a proven scorer in the NBA. Last year he was at 18 points a game, almost to a T. He was 45% from the field, and he was definitely over almost 40% from three, if I'm not mistaken. He's a good free throw shooter. Like, I think this is what the Pistons need, because the Pistons are so young. They need kind of a proven shot creator and just secondary scorer. He's not a 25-point per game guy, but someone to kind of take the load off of Cade, someone to take the load off of Ivy. And that's what he's going to do. He's not a huge needle mover, but I think when you're looking at it, you're like, we're getting a good guy who at one point with the Pacers a couple years ago did score 20 a game. He does so efficiently. He's not super ball dominant where he's going to take the ball out of Cade's hands, take the ball out of Ivy's hands. I like the move. I don't think this makes them some sort of playoff contender or a championship squad. But when you're developing guys, I think the mistake and the issue you see with a lot of young guys on bad teams is they have no support, and so they're hoisting bad shots. They're doing too much. They're being overused. They're not playing efficient basketball. This allows, I think, Cade and Ivy to still have those rookie and sophomore lumps, but know like, hey, there's a guy that we can throw the ball to, and he can go get his own shot, or we can get him a shot and he's going to be able to score at a slightly above average clip. So I like the move. I think it does more for them than Olynyk did, especially with Duren on the roster now.
Right, Duren and Isaiah Stewart.
Yes.
They already had a log jam with yeah. Mav, any thoughts?
I think the shot creation and spacing that he provides is going to give a lot more space for Cade and Jaden to grow their offensive games, especially Ivy. Coming in as a guard in his rookie year, it's going to be a little bit of adjustment. It's with Bogdanovic, it's not going to be that big of an adjustment for other guards. Like Cade last year didn't have the spacing as he is this year, because we saw in the summer league, Stewart has shown some shooting capabilities. You have Bogdanovic, his spacing he's an elite floor spacer. You got Saddiq Bey, he's at least somewhat decent and could, shoot some.
Yeah.
So I mean, the spacing is going to be much better for them to grow and be a two-guard tandem that they see in the future.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that the Pistons lacked was some proven shooters that actually could stay on the floor. And so I think that you're both right. This is a great fit for what they needed. At the same time, Olynyk, that Utah was basically needed a veteran proven center. They get that. They don't have to throw Kessler into the fire right away. They can, start Olynyk at center. They can move Markkanen to power forward. They don't have to start Markkanen at the 5. So, so I think it works out for everybody. But like you said, it's not going to move the needle a tremendous amount, but I think it's going to benefit both teams and get them a few more wins. So now the big story that's really developed this week is Jay Crowder's situation. Jay Crowder has seemingly, been tweeting for, I don't know, about a month. He tweets out these tweets that he wants out or he's gone, and then he deletes them. But it seems now that it's definitely a reality. He will not play at training camp for the Suns. This Suns organization, this seems to, ever since their collapse in the playoffs last year, just seems to be going backwards. I'm very concerned about that team. They also, unlike everybody else, has been carrying like 20, 23 players on their roster, while the Suns have like 16 guys on their roster. I don't know what the people who, make the moves, but there's been a lot of quality players, with potential to be NBA contributors at some point in their life, that they just sit there and I don't know what they're doing with their thumbs up their asses, apparently, because they don't sign anybody. So this has been a pattern for them for like 2 or 3 years. The team never has any depth. They never build their farm system. I just don't know what that team is thinking. But getting back to Crowder, where do we see him going? Because the options are limited. There's plenty of teams that could use a play like Jay Crowder, but right now with cap situation, and if you take a team like the Lakers, for example, most of the Lakers roster is built by players they just signed or just drafted. They can't. If you just signed a guy, you can't trade them. Usually
not until January-ish, around that time.
So, exactly. A lot of these teams are handcuffed by, what kind of moves they will make, even if they wanted Crowder. And I think a lot of teams would want Crowder.
Oh yeah. This is a horrible look for the Suns because, I agree on their farm system has been kind of a mess and they haven't really, they've had some decent draft picks over the years. Obviously, look at Ayton, look at Booker that have panned out, but they don't really have any incoming young talent. I thought that they were relatively deep the last year or two when they kind of rose to relevance. They had Cam Johnson, Crowder, Bridges, the point guard who I'm drawing a blank on his name. Was it Cameron Payne? Cam Payne. So there were some pieces where I was like, okay, like they have a decent rotation behind their their big 3 per se. But I think this is a horrible look. I don't know why Crowder wants out. Something has to be going on. The team did go to the NBA Finals, then won a league best 64 games. And say what you want, they did win a playoff series and went 7 games. They lost, but it wasn't like they didn't make the playoffs and flamed out. In terms of where Crowder's going to go, Rich, I'm looking at some of the teams you have here. I think all those teams would be a good fit. Chicago, I think, just needs to add some more depth if they really want to make. They were kind of all in on this kind of playoff core that they have from last year with Ball, Vucevic, DeRozan, Levine. So I think you kind of have to go all in with that. Memphis, I think he fits the Memphis culture of gritty 3-and-D wing. Again, kind of a veteran presence on a young team that's trying to take that next step.
It won't have Jaren Jackson forever,
Yeah, exactly. He can fill in for the 20 games that Jaren Jackson's going to miss like clockwork. You can use Crowder there. I think Crowder played at Miami, and that's where he kind of made a name for himself, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So, that reunion could work. And the Lakers could use anybody at this point, but Rich, you hit it nail on the head. They can't afford him. And this is where I think Crowder and the Suns really dropped the ball collectively is if you knew he wanted out or he wanted to leave, why wasn't this done 2-3 months ago? You now have handcuffed yourself because everyone has spent all their money on free agents, and you had time. The KD situation had the entire league in a standstill. You had plenty of time to swing a trade before money was spent. Now there's no money because everyone is basically re-signed. The star roster players outside have been set. Obviously there's the pieces moving around them, but the money's been spent. And because the money's been spent, all the guys who are likely to be traded for a player of Jay Crowder's caliber are under contract and can't be traded until December or January. So the Suns are a mess.
Even the sign and trade options are gone because if they've already been signed, now it's too late.
It's
so you
too late. Yep.
You have to agree to that, ahead of time. You can't, like with Ayton can't be traded for till January.
The next 3 or 4 months. So
yeah, right.
It's a mess. This franchise, unfortunately, went from one of the quickest rises and falls I can remember in terms of championship contender to like, they'll be a playoff team. They're just talented enough, but like, are they going to be the 4 seed and get bounced in the first round? Right. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. If Chris Paul declines at all, like he did, like we expect a 38-year-old to at some point, they're screwed. Booker can't carry a team. It's that simple, in my opinion.
Yep. Mav, any thoughts here?
Yeah, it's a horrible look. It's a horrible look. And just look at the individual player that's being affected. I can't remember Crowder ever really being like this towards a team. When he was Miami, it felt like more he was like a passionate leader on that final squad in the bubble. Even in the finals run in Phoenix, and let's even just add Boston to that as well. He's a leader. He's an emotional leader, passionate emotional leader. Yeah. To have him just kind of come out in the past few days and act like this and say these things is a reflection on the franchise itself. You've seen this with the DeAndre Ayton situation as well. They mishandled that just as bad.
Right.
So it's a poor look. I think out of the 4 teams, out of Chicago, Memphis, Miami, and Los Angeles, I would say probably the most likely to happen in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks would probably be Miami. You could probably imagine like a Duncan Robinson type of deal, but even then, still that's not very much. I mean, you're going to get an overpaid shooter who didn't shoot very well last year. And you'd have to add on another asset to get him. So
yeah. Oh, definitely. You probably have to throw in a first round pick.
Yeah.
But at this point, if the guy's unhappy, and I'll tell you what, I don't know. And we're actually going to try to get somebody who knows more about this, what's going on in Phoenix next week on the show. But my guess, it has something to do with Ayton. I don't think it has anything to do with Monty Williams. I think it has something to do with Ayton. I don't think Monty Williams is the only person that's not happy about playing with Ayton. I could be wrong. I could be way off. That's just my guess. As far as the trades go, Chicago, the one asset that I could see that they could trade and would somewhat match salary wise. By the way, Crowder's making about $11 million, so that's what they got to match cap wise. Cody White is making, or is it Kobe? I always get that mixed up. Is it
Kobe?
Kobe. Okay, so Kobe White, the guard out of North Carolina, he's making about 7 or 8, so they'd have to throw in something else there to make that work. But Phoenix, to me, when I look at that roster, I mean, what they need is bigs. So I don't see how that would really. Actually, they lack depth everywhere, and which I pointed out up top, but I think they really, right now, Bismarck Biyombo is their backup center behind Ayton. So if something happens to Ayton, that's who you're starting. Right now, with Crowder gone, Dario Saric is your starting power forward. That's not horrible, but it's also not NBA championship caliber kind of starter you want if you're looking for the NBA title. Saric is a solid player, but he's the guy you rather having coming off the bench, behind another player, So, and his backup then would be Torrey Craig, who's really a small forward / wing. And that's going to be your backup power forward. So this is the thing I'm talking, and they have no one behind that. Like every other team, their depth chart goes like 4 deep at every spot right now because they're allowed to carry 20 people. Right now, the Phoenix is carrying, not counting Crowder, they're carrying 17. So they have 3 open slots. And a lot of teams right now are over that 20, and they're going to trim down. They're going through the process of signing the Exhibit 10s, and they waive them so they can have those guys in their farm system. Phoenix is doing none of that. The Knicks have done it like 5 or 6 times in the last week. Phoenix hasn't done it once this offseason. So, yeah. But Memphis, I don't know. Most of their assets are not getting paid much money. They have a lot of talent on that team. They're decent players like Xavier McDaniel. You could argue maybe he's kind of like a Jay Crowder, clone a little bit. But he's only making like $2 million a year. So, how are you going to make that work? Miami, as you said, has Duncan Robinson, but they're going to have to throw in probably a first-round pick to get Phoenix to bite at that. And then, of course, the Lakers, we already talked about that. They don't really have anything to trade because everybody on the team is new. So, yeah. All right. So let's move on to our division previews and the order. I assume, Maverick, you did the order here. Is this based on how you're predicting they're going to finish, or is how they finished last year?
No, this is in no particular order. I was just I just listed some teams. There's no in particular order for what I predict or anything.
Oh, okay. All right. So the questions we're going to answer here for all the teams in the Atlantic Division and the Southeastern Division is, do we think the team's better or worse? Where do we think they're going to finish in the division? Will they make the playoffs? And does the club have any fantasy steals or fantasy busts that we'd like to talk about? So we'll start off with the Celtics in the Atlantic. The major changes here is Daniel Tice is gone. Aaron Nesmith is gone. Coming in is Malcolm Brogdon, Danilo Gallinari. Unfortunately, Gallinari is looking like the chances are great that he will not play this year because of a recent ACL injury. And they also added J.D. Davidson in the draft, who's signed to a 2-way contract. So, Drew, I'm going to let you start off here. What are your thoughts on the Celtics, on where they're going to finish in division, whether they're going to make the playoffs, and any fantasy guys and have they improved over last year or not? And any fantasy standouts one way or the other on this team?
So the Celtics are an interesting team because from a purely basketball standpoint, they got better. We talked about this back with Hugh last season. We all love the Malcolm Brogdon trade. It can be argued it might have been one of the best moves in all of the offseason trades, draft, whatever you want to call it. And I do agree with that. He gives you a legitimate, multifaceted guard who knows how to play the point, can take over playmaking and ball handling responsibilities. Marcus Smart, that's not his forte, and that showed in the playoffs a lot. The problem with him is health. He has yet to play over, I think, 55 games or 60 games the last couple of years. So if he can stay healthy, especially when the playoffs roll around, it's a great addition. Obviously, we like the addition of Gallinari. That's just unfortunate. You feel bad. He would have been another great depth piece. So from a basketball standpoint, this team did get better. I mean, you're the reigning Eastern Conference champion. You're projecting Brown and Tatum still have room to get better. Marcus Smart's the reigning defensive player of the year. Malcolm Brogdon is an upgrade at point guard. You get a full year of Derek White in that system to kind of be your sixth man. Grant Williams has shown flashes. And then they have a really great 1-2 center combo with Robert Williams and Al Horford. So I love the roster top to bottom. I think playoffs is kind of a lock. I don't know if I would go as far to say as they're going to represent the East in the NBA Finals, but I think their ceiling is definitely at least an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. That being said, this team is about to be tested, not on the court, but all mentally. We all are aware of the Udoka scandal going on. We don't have details. Nobody does. But it started off with seemingly.
Oh, no, that's not true. People have the details.
Well, people have the details. We don't. We don't have the details. The problem is basically this. This team is going to be tested mentally because all year long, they're going to be dealing with this. From a basketball standpoint, you don't have your head coach who just got you to a finals. Is the interim head coach going to be able to, manage egos, diagram play calling, manage rotations, all that. But the off court, it's going to get really old when you're 40 games into the season and a reporter asks you about the Udoka situation. There's going to be players in that locker room that might be divided. Some might be in defense of him. Some might be against him. It's going to test this team a lot. Not to even mention that whole Robert Williams. I think we're starting to look at is he trending towards that injury-prone designation? Because I think he has the ability to be that Draymond Green factor for this team to put them over the edge as that multi-positional. He's a big defender, but just it wreaks havoc on the defensive end, defends the rim, cleans up the glass. But if he can't stay healthy, Al Horford is 38. 30. I mean, he's ageless, but he's ageless until he's not. And then you're starting him out there and he can't do anything and he either gets hurt or he just looks 3 steps too slow. So I'm going to say they got better. I like the JD Davison pickup. I like the Gallinari pickup before he got hurt. I love the Brogdon move. They have a really strong core of Smart, Brown, and Tatum. But this off-the-court stuff with, Williams unable to really stay healthy and Udoka problems, I think are going to be issues. From a fantasy standpoint, I think Brogdon's definitely worth a look. He was averaging – his points will go down. He's not going to be the guy anymore, but I think his field goal efficiency is going to rise. His passing should increase. So I think Brogdon's definitely someone worth taking a look at, especially if people are off of him because of the injury problems. And then obviously the usual, suspects, Tatum and Jaylen Brown are must-draft guys. And if Robert Williams does fall to you in a draft, folks, I would definitely take him. If he can get healthy and stay healthy, there's a starting center for your season that you can basically plug in like 8 to 10 points and probably 10 to 12 rebounds a game, and he's a great shot blocker. So those are the guys I'd have an eye on.
Maverick?
Drew, that was beautifully said. A lot of the stuff that you just said.
Wait, I have to interrupt. I have to interrupt right now. We've had a lot of people on the show, and Drew and I have been the two constants, I should say. And a lot of people end up after Drew gets done talking saying that was beautifully said because there's nothing else to say.
Well, I do have to add one thing.
Go ahead.
When we talk about the mental toughness of the Celtics, I just want to point out one thing. It's not like the Celtics all last year were dominant and they were just a lock to go to the finals. Last year at the All-Star break, I believe it was All-Star break, maybe a little bit before, they were a 500 team. They were I think they were 24-24, something around that.
Yeah.
And then the coach, the Boston's coach, and Marcus Smart were the people that stepped in and really got the locker room together connected. That's what the reports were saying, and that's what I'm going to roll with. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have that coach that had that confidence in you. You have a whole other coach after that coach before brought you to the finals. I mean, it's going to be a split locker room. Like Drew was saying, the media is going to be talking about it all year. So for that reason, I'm not going to say they got better. I'm going to say they got significantly worse. Right now, I could see them, and I know this is probably a little low, maybe 44 wins.
Whoa.
But it is just too much for me to say that they are a complete lock in the playoffs whenever I think that there's other teams that have a better atmosphere and better mental toughness, such as Toronto. I think Cleveland with JB Bickerstaff is up there now, especially with Donovan Mitchell. Atlanta, I love Atlanta's team. I just can't say that right now with the off-court issues.
Okay. All right. I get it. I'm going to use some warning, folks. I'm going to use some colorful language here, but if you don't know already, I am a F1 Formula One fan, big fan. And last year, there was probably the closest competition they've had in years, maybe decades, between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton for the top overall championship. And they had several accidents where they ran into each other. And toward the end of the season, they sat down for an interview. And the first question was about the aggressiveness and the contact between the two drivers. And Max Verstappen, this is the first question of a press conference, and he says, "I'm tired of talking about that fucking stuff. We're not going to talk about that fucking shit anymore. I don't want to hear any more questions about it. We drive hard. That's what we do." But that kind of reminds me, you were talking about them getting tired of being asked the same question over and over. And that's another thing he said. We've answered this question, all season long. We're sick of answering it. And Hamilton, of course, who's not nearly as colorful as Verstappen when it comes to language, said that he didn't comment. He just kind of shook his head. But anyway, that's what it reminded me of. But moving on to Celtics, I do think they've improved, but the Udoka situation does complicate matters. The only thing I could say going in their favor is Brad Stevenson coached his team before. He's still there. If worse comes to worse, he could move down and go into the coaching situation. So I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think, but I don't know. It's a huge wild card. I will say that Matt Barnes, former NBA player, now in the media, made it very clear recently in some comments that this situation is much uglier than we were initially led to believe. It seems to me, what reading in between the lines, and of course, again, this is conjecture, but it seems like maybe there was some pressure put on the female, to participate in this relationship. That's what I'm getting from in between the lines, but I don't know what else they could mean. But that I'm not the brightest person in the world, so maybe I'm overlooking something. But in terms of fantasy, I think the Gallinari thing, when he signed, I was like, Lakers are going to win the NBA championship. This is done. It's a done deal. They got everything they need. But as soon as that happened, he went down as quickly as he got signed. So now I think they have some definite depth issues, especially when you're talking about Horford's age, Williams' penchant for injuries, and they have nothing really at forward beside Grant Williams coming off the bench. So in terms of fantasy, the guys I would be looking at to perhaps pop up would be Sam Hauser, who's the most likely replacement, a sharpshooter from Marquette, who's really hadn't been given a shot, and a very similar game to Gallinari. Not nearly as physically talented, at least a young Gallinari, but Hauser could pop in there, put up some fantasy points in a pinch, when they need a spot start here and there at forward. And Grant Williams, of course, he's still young. He's a hard worker, and we could probably see him maybe improve on some of his numbers and maybe get into that fantasy range. Though he's not the type of guy that's going to give you a lot of steals. He plays great defense, but he's not going to give you a lot of steals and blocks. He just doesn't have the length, doesn't have the athleticism to do that. So those are my thoughts on the Celtics. I still think they're going to win the division. And we'll talk about where they're going to wrap up in the bigger scheme later on down the road in our season preview show. At this point, I'm going to cut, and we'll come back and we'll start with Sixers. And anyone's offended by my language, go fuck yourself. So moving on to my favorite team, which is no secret. We don't keep our favorite teams hidden around here. And mine is the Sixers. And the big moves they've made this year was they lost Danny Green, and they signed PJ Tucker, Montrezl Harrell. They also acquired Travell Queen and Daniel House from Houston, and they also added D'Anthony Melton in a draft day trade where they gave up their one draft pick to acquire him from Memphis. So a lot of moves for the Sixers. Drew, you want to start us off? Has this team improved? How do they stand in the division? And got any fantasy picks here?
Yeah, I think absolutely they improved. This is, I think, a really good textbook case of getting better on the margins, adding great pieces to a team that is already pushing towards contention. They didn't do anything crazy. They didn't swing any major trades. They didn't blow it all. Like, this was a really great offseason by the 76ers. You start off, you get James Harden back on a discount. Whatever you feel about James Harden, he still gave you 10.5 assists and 7 rebounds a game. The scoring efficiency, you're a little bit worried about that, but the price that they got him for what he brings holistically to that offense, you're cool with that. PJ Tucker's a winner. He's a scrappy guy. He adds a level of toughness. Philadelphia is going to love him, just the way that he plays, knocks down the three, competes at all levels, at anybody. He'll go at anybody. Montrezl Harrell hasn't been able to stick with the team for a while now, so there's questions on maybe his attitude. But again, I feel like this is the right environment for him, because when we saw him at his best, it was with those super scrappy Clippers teams when they were just a bunch of basically role players that took 2 games off the Warriors back when they had Kevin Durant. And so I think this is the right system for him. He's going to be an outstanding insurance and policy to Joel Embiid because, look, Joel is amazing. You don't need to talk about him, fantasy draft him, all that. But he's going to miss 20 games this year at some point. Montrez helps stop that bleeding by giving you a guaranteed 15-7. As long as he's motivated, but 15-7. And D'Anthony Melton was a sneaky good pickup. I'm not necessarily one to give up draft picks because, you do need to have a farm system like what we're seeing with the Suns is when you have no young talent, you're basically tied to the core you have. But Melton is young enough and plays really, really solid basketball. He can shoot. He just couldn't play at Memphis because they're loaded on the wings and the guard positions. I mean, you had Ja, you had Dylan Brooks, you had a lot of talent there. So he's definitely a great addition. I think right now, the way I'm looking at him, I would say that they are definitely in contention to win the division. I would say, depending on how you feel about Boston, they're no worse than the second team. A lot of it's obviously going to be in Embiid's health. And if James Harden can stabilize his scoring a little bit. But fantasy-wise, I love D'Anthony Melton as a really efficient guard that you should be looking to roster. He's going to come in. He's going to hit threes. He plays the game the right way. So while he won't give you 25 points and 10 assists, when you have to plug him into like your utility position or fill in for an injured guy, always going to be solid. I love Tyrese Maxey, man. I love that kid's energy. So I think he should be on your radars because he might take over. This year, we might see him take over as the primary perimeter scorer. If Harden goes to facilitation, Maxey might average over 20 a game this year if they kind of allow Harden just to focus on playmaking. And then Montrezl Harrell, because again, you get an insurance policy. If you have like Joel Embiid, go get Harrell because that way you control that entire front court. And B, Harrell, whether he's playing off the bench or starting, like I said, is pretty much a lock for 15-7. So that's what I'd be looking at.
Maverick?
Well, it's no secret that Daryl Morey, this is his team. It's all of his additions. Yeah, I really like the 76ers this year. I really like it. I feel like this is a Doc Rivers team. I'm not too worried about the James Harden scoring. I think that him facilitating might actually be better because let's just look at it this way. The whole thing was you didn't see Houston James Harden last year. But when are we ever going to see James Harden from Houston ever again? The whole system in Houston was based around him. Mike D'Antoni ran a system where he shot in 7 seconds. I mean, that was his whole thing. It was a bunch of threes. James Harden controlled the entire pace, which is great. I mean, he's an all-time player. But we don't need that. That's not what 76ers need, especially with Maxey and Embiid. That's not what they need. They need the James Harden who's going to make the right play and be efficient. Not worried about that. This is his first healthy offseason, I believe, in 2 years. Not an issue. I do have an issue with Tobias Harris. I have questions about his fit. I don't know how well he's going to fit with his shot creation. He prefers to play a little bit in the mid post and take mid-range shots. I'm not exactly sure how. I had questions about it last year when the trade happened. I felt like that it was almost like he was non-existent. So
at times, and this is actually he's been with the Sixers for 2 years now. So last year wasn't his first year. But I know what you're saying. He's not an ideal wing player, but his defense has improved. I'd rather see him play at the 4 and have somebody more wing-like at the 3. But, they can do that too. I mean, they could go with a lineup of Melton, Harden, Maxey, Harris and Embiid at times, so I do think they get some flexibility there. But yeah, so go on.
I have them actually finishing first in the division. I have them finishing first. I think they have a great chance to be first in the East just altogether. It's just a Doc Rivers team. It has a lot of talent. It probably has the most talent since he's been in Philadelphia, Doc Rivers. And just, for fantasy, I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get out of Embiid. He's going to miss 20 games. That's why you have Montrez. And then obviously with James Harden and Tyrese Maxey, like Drew noted. So,
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the Melton trade when it first happened, and I said that on the show, but I actually looked at Melton's numbers over his first 4 years in the league, and he's made steady progress, and he's a better shooter than I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely see him getting big minutes, and think he's worth, a late round pick fantasy wise. Maxey, I'm a little concerned with his progression because he was so damn efficient last year. Can he really improve upon that efficiency? I think that's going to be tough. But volume might be coming, more volume, but can he keep that efficiency up? We'll see. If he does, he's an all-star. And so I guess we're going to find that out. I like Harrell's reunion with Doc. And here's what Harrell is still, it seems like he's been around forever. He's still only 29 years old. And, just a few years ago, 2019, he averaged close to 19 points a game. And I'm telling you, he's going to get starter minutes on this team. He's going to play starter minutes behind Embiid and Tucker. And he might even start some. I could see a lineup where he starts at the 4 and Tucker comes off the bench. I doubt that. I think Harrell's going to be the guy coming off the bench. But I think between backing up Tucker and Embiid, he's going to be, he'll probably be, him and Melton are going to be the two first guys off the bench. And the guy that's going to probably be out of the mix is George Niang. I think he's the guy that's going to lose here. But all right, so let's move on to the Raptors. We haven't had anything negative to say about Canadians or Canadian teams of late. Before you ever joined the show, Maverick, we had our first few months of the show. Every week it was some Canadian was banging on us about something or other. But yes, we've made peace with Canada.
For now.
So there really weren't any key departures from this team. They've added Otto Porter, Josh Jackson in the offseason. Also Thaddeus Young. Was Huncho
Hernan Gomez.
Yeah, was he with them last year? Yeah, I think he was.
He was for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was from the whole season.
I don't think he was there the whole season. Yeah. Also, they signed rookie free agent Ron Harper Jr. to a two-way contract, and they drafted Christian Coloco for a much-needed rim protector. So, Drew, how do you see this team shaping up? Have they improved? Where do you see them going?
I think by default, they kind of improved because they didn't really lose too much. I like Otto Porter. Like, he was with my Golden State Warriors last year, and he's kind of just like a proven contributor. I like the Ron Harper Jr. pickup. I think that's like kind of a can't really hurt you addition. Like, you see what you got there. I love Christian Coloco in terms of adding just more depth to center, especially because, I know they have Siakam technically slated as their starting center. I don't know if you want that to be your situation for a whole year, just in terms of him like being able to, stay healthy, stay upright. I don't know if you want your best player banging with undersized best player playing against bigs the whole time. So I like their additions. I mean, they didn't really do too much. In terms of starting lineup, I love the Raptors starting lineup. I've never been a big Fred VanVleet guy. Just, I think he's a good player, but I've never been completely into the hype. Like, his story's awesome, but whatever. He's a solid point guard. For fantasies, you have him great. He's not going to move the needle too much. I think Gary Trent and OG were a really great wing duo. They both kind of offer different things. Gary Trent can give you some shooting. OG, I think, averaged 17 points a game, a great athlete. Like, I like them as really solid wing players. And then Scotty Barnes, man, really impressed me. I think in terms of rookies last year, not only winning it, he was the most impressive rookie to me in terms of what my expectations were. I know everyone's really high on Mobley's potential, and Cade is, had a good year statistically, but Scotty Barnes, man, could come out of this as the best rookie in that class. I mean, if he doesn't get any better in his NBA career, he's still going to be a 15-5, multi-positional defensive wing.
15,
and that's if he doesn't get any
15,
better.
5 and 5.
And 5, yeah, exactly.
Or actually probably like 15, 8 and 5.
And that's if he doesn't really improve at all, which he will. He's in a good system, a good team, sound culture. And, again, I've also never been a big Siakam guy. Like, I just don't really love his game, but he's productive. Like, at the end of the day, the numbers speak for themselves. And that's kind of the whole story of my opinion on the Raptors is, like, I think this is a team that's going to cap out at a playoff series win. They might be able to capitalize on some of the chaos off the court that goes on in this division. Like you said, the Nets are the Nets. We'll get to them. But, maybe the Celtics struggle. The Nets have issues again. And I could see them kind of stumbling their way into, hell, even winning the division. If the injury bug strikes the 76ers, like they could totally win this division. But, I like the team, don't love it. But I think there's a lot of pieces on this team that are really good players. They just aren't really my players. Fantasy-wise, any of their starters are draftable. I think should be drafted, ranging from, first couple rounds to maybe deep round picks. But I've always been a big fan of, I always pronounce his last name wrong, but Precious
Achua.
I think if he somehow can find his way into like a starting center or to like 20 plus minutes a game, I think he's fantasy viable. He won't really start because Barnes and Siakam have to play that 4-5 combo, but I think he just has a great nose for the ball, plays hard. Malachi Flynn's a solid backup point guard. So if Van Vliet can't stay healthy again, that's their starting point guard in the offense with a lot of weapons and options. So he's viable. So those are the two guys I'd look at outside of the starting five.
Maverick?
Yeah, I really like the Raptors starting five. Just the fact that everyone can kind of grab the ball off a defensive rebound and push it.
Yep.
I mean, every person on the starting lineup could realistically spot up. They can switch on defense. I mean, they can do a bunch of different things. I mean, Nick Nurse is one of the best coaches in the league. Eventually, they're going to have to probably just either one year just commit to winning or tank, because right now it's a mediocre five. Fred is not going to be.
I think they have a good five. I think what you mean to say is it's a mediocre team. You said you like their starting lineup, right?
Mediocre team.
Right.
Yeah. It's a mediocre team. It's going to be more than likely a play-in, a high play-in seed. Eventually, they're going to have to decide what they want to do. I know they talked about trading OG this offseason, so they're already looking towards that. But, I mean, they're keeping this roster just how it is. They're probably going to be a play-in team, and nothing wrong with that. You have Scotty Barnes, who's only going to improve, like you were saying. He's a 15, 8, and 5 guy. He's multi. I mean, he can guard a point guard and he can guard a 4 at the same level. I mean, you'll have to make a decision eventually.
Yeah, that's a really good take, Maverick. Like, I think this team is like, the problem with this team is they don't have a lot behind the starting five. So if something happens to Siakam, you go from like, I give them like a play-in team. Maybe they get like, if they, they're coached well, maybe they get to that 5 seed. But like, if something happens to Siakam, which is kind of your only like star player that can even kind of qualify, you're screwed. Because Van Vliet can't carry a team. He just isn't physically imposing enough, and he's just not good enough to do it. So, mediocre team with an outstanding starting five, though.
Right. And, so another way of saying what you guys have said is this team doesn't have a lot of depth. And I think where it's really apparent is in the backcourt. I mean, Malachi Flynn and Delano Banton were both rookies last year, and they Svi Mikhailuk was the other guard option last year. And at one point, Flynn was passed over by Banton, which was unexpected because Flynn was the higher draft pick.
Yep.
But right now they're your backup guards, and neither really showed a lot as a rookie. So this is, to me, one of the keys of this team is, can Malachi Flynn live up to his potential? If he does play, because we thought he was another Van Vliet, at least I did. And so I'm thinking if he lives up to that potential, okay, that's one piece. They need a good backcourt guy, a third guard. Yeah. Now, in the front court, like you said, they added Otto Porter. They also have Thaddeus Young. They have Hernan Gomez, and they have Chris Boucher. So they have a lot of different options there. But I think the guy, as Drew pointed out, I think the guy who's going to step up is Precious Achua. They did not want to trade him this year in trade discussions. They wanted to keep him. And I think he's ultimately right now going to be the solution to get a lot of minutes at the 5, because he's got the body for it. And Koloko will probably not play a lot this year unless somebody gets hurt, and they're going to bring him along. But if Koloko develops, Okay, now we're starting to see the develop. If Flynn comes along, if Achua comes along, Koloko come along, maybe they don't have to break this group up. But that's a lot of ifs. Okay.
Yeah.
But so I agree with you. I definitely think they're a top 8 team. I think they're in the playoffs. But that's about as far as I could say they're going to go. All right, now moving on to probably the biggest enigma in the league. We have the Eastern Conference's version of the LA Lakers, but I think they've overtaken the Lakers for drama. And they've made a lot of changes on this team. And none of the ones that were expected. So they got rid of Mr. Do Everything, Bruce Brown, Andre Drummond's gone, LaMarcus Aldridge's gone, Blake Griffin's gone. Incoming is Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren, Ed Subner, Markieff Morris. And they didn't have any draft picks, but they did sign Alondas Williams to a 2-way. They also have David Duke from last year on a 2-way. All right, Drew. What do you see with this team? I mean,
so for anybody joining us in season 2, just know that this is a team that has been on the receiving end of plenty of, verbal beatings from me, and they will continue to do so here until proven otherwise. Okay, so look, from a basketball standpoint, I actually like a lot of the additions they made. I think Royce O'Neal is a great, just kind of do everything kind of glue guy you add to a team like this that needs somebody who's stable, is going to show up, do his job, not complain. TJ Warren's a bit of an upside swing. I mean, obviously he hasn't played in almost 2 years, but obviously we remember Bubble Warren when he was going crazy in the bubble. But that whole regular season before that, he averaged 19.8 points a game and was shooting like close to 50, 40, like 80 something percent. Like he was a great offensive weapon. If he gets back to form and they choose to bring him off the bench, he could very easily be a 6-man of the year candidate. Dark horse because we don't know what the injury, but with his scoring prowess in a second unit, this could be a guy who averages 18, 19, 20 off a bench and is a huge factor for this team. Markieff Morris is the less heralded Morris brother, but again, kind of a guy who's going to come in, do his job, a little bit gritty. You need that on this team. And I really like Alondas Williams as a player. I don't expect him to be an impact force on this team at all, but he could be something in a couple of years in their farm system that they really, maybe struck gold there. I like his story. I like him as a player. But look, when you look at this roster, it boils down to 3 things. Is Kevin Durant going to be healthy for a full season? Is Kyrie Irving going to admit that the earth is round? And is Ben Simmons going to figure out a way to get on a basketball court? That's their season. If all 3 of those things hit, and in their best case scenario, this is an NBA championship caliber team without question. You have shooting in Curry, Harris, Durant, Kyrie, Patty Mills. You have great shooters. You don't have the best, front court depth, but Nick Claxton is serviceable. Simmons can obviously play the 5 and defend at a high level. I'll give him that. Maybe Day'Ron Sharp kind of steps up and takes up some minutes more. It's just kind of a grinder who just kind of bangs down low. Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren at small forward aren't elite options, but they are not going to hurt you. They can contribute to a playoff caliber team. But here's the problem. We have no idea what's going to happen. 3 months from now, we could be like, this is the best team in the league. They're destroying everybody. Kevin Durant's going to win MVP. Kyrie shooting 50, 40, 90 again, and Ben Simmons is revitalized. Or Kyrie Irving could be off in some jungle doing God knows what on a vision quest, and Ben Simmons is still in therapy. We just don't know. We don't know, and I refuse
what
to buy
kind of therapy
team.
is Simmons in, by the way? Is he in physical therapy and mental therapy?
Yeah, at this point, who knows, man? The guy's fear is basketballs. I mean, I can only imagine he's like on the Maury show, and they bring out a basketball, and he goes screaming off stage. I can't do it with it, man. I'm out on Ben Simmons. I miss him to death, man, that Hughes not here, but I know Hughes is going back to back when he was in Australia playing, that there were concerns about his motor and his passion. And that's because he was on the Australian circuit growing up in the basketball community. So look, I'm out on this team. They'll make the playoffs. Sure. I'll give them that. If they can get 55 games out of their big 3 individual, like if each of those guys can play 55 games at some point in the season, they'll make the playoffs. Kevin Durant is in the contention for best player in the world until proven otherwise. But I think this team's going to get bounced in the second round. Maybe the first round again. Right. And maybe they prove me wrong, but I'll bet against them every time.
What do you got, Mav?
Drew, you said a lot of great things. On paper, This is a great team. Great team. You had concerns with Ben Simmons. Valid concerns. You know, he might be scared of a basketball, but there is no better time than right now than to double down on Ben Simmons if he plays the 5. If Ben Simmons plays the 5 right now and he shows his versatility on the perimeter and in interior defense with his playmaking ability, there is no better time than right now to double down on him. No better time.
Wow.
If he is going to be playing center, that is the only thing. He played center for a little bit when Joel Embiid was hurt for like about a 5-game stretch. About 2 to 3 years ago. He played against Rudy Gobert. He had 44 points on him. 42 points on him, excuse me. Yep. If he plays the center consistently, this is a playoff nightmare. And for me, saying that Philadelphia is going to be the 1 seed, I would be terrified to play against this team if they had Ben Simmons playing the 5, a motivated Ben Simmons playing the 5. Because then also, let's say that Ben Simmons has some issues, maybe the spacing's not well. Royce O'Neal was able to play the 5 in the playoffs last year as a small ball 5. Now you have TJ Warren, who was scoring 19 points a game before he was unfortunately hurt. He could come back and he could be behind a deep team to really get his body right back to the NBA level. He's going to come back around the playoff time to where he is. If he does, it would be around the playoff time. Place him in the 3, put Royce at the 5. You have something with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm saying that they're going to be second in the division. I'm not a believer in Boston. I think that they're going to be second in the division, and they're going to be a top 3 seed.
We're not even mentioning Joe Harris here. And Joe Harris is one of the best shooters in the league. And, of course, they have Cameron Thomas, who's a gifted scorer who languishes on this bench. He was a terrible pick for this team.
Dominates Summer League, averaging 25 plus.
And he should be traded. He doesn't fit on this team. But yeah, and maybe he will. Excellent points, gentlemen. And I have one question to ask you. You're in the 5th round of your fantasy draft. Let's say you have pick 45, okay? And all this on the board is kind of blah, blah, blah. But you got 2 guys sitting out there, Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons. Pick 45. Do you take a steady known commodity? You know, I don't know who would be in that range. Like maybe Sadiq Bey, somebody like that. You know, is not gonna produce huge numbers, but he's not going to disappoint you either. Steady. Or would you take Irving? Or would you take Ben Simmons?
I'm taking Irving or Ben Simmons as much as it pains me.
No, but which one? Fantasy. Which one? You got to pick.
Which one?
You got to pick Irving, Simmons, or steady guy like Bay.
Oh shit, that's hard. Matt, if you have an answer, you can go ahead, man.
Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I might lean towards Ben Simmons because in fantasy, one of my long-standing strategies is I look for guys who can give you production away from scoring because it's easier to do. You know, most fantasy leagues punish you for inefficient scoring. Ben Simmons, he doesn't shoot, but he's an efficient finisher. So when he does score, it's at a 50+% clip. And if he does play the 5, he will average close to 10 rebounds, and he's going to give you at least 5 or 6 assists. Kyrie is a scorer.
He's going to kill you in the free throw category.
He'll kill you now it depends. If you're playing categories, if you're playing in a category format, it might be Kyrie because he has 50, 40, 90 potential. And again, if he plays and he's motivated and he wants to, the dude can average 30 a game. We know that. But I'm talking just kind of like standard scoring where you get, points for rebounds, assists, and it goes by total. Akin to fantasy football, I'd probably go Simmons because he has more. I think Simmons has to play this year. I don't think it's a matter of if Kyrie, we don't know. Simmons, I think will play this year. It just depends on how hard he plays and how motivated he is. Kyrie's a legit question mark. I think Kyrie's going to miss 25 games this year, non-injury related. God forbid he gets hurt, and he's been nicked in the past. Ben will play. It's just a matter if he wants to.
Right. I think Kyrie, for the limited time he played last year, I think he averaged close to 30 points a game.
Like 27 points. I think he was over 27 a game.
Yeah, it was incredible. Simmons, now, of course, it was like 3-4 years ago, but the last time he played like over 70 games for the Sixers, I think he was the 11th overall fantasy scorer.
Wouldn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
So yeah, so that is a tough question that I presented you guys. I think I would go with Irving because they both could flake out for whatever reason this year or could be hurt, but I just feel that I trust Irving. This is hard to believe, but I trust Kyrie more than I trust Ben. And that's quite the statement right there. All right, so let's
just draft Kevin Durant and call it a day, folks. If you want to play for the Nets, just draft Kevon Durant in the first round and just
he's no spring chicken either. His numbers are going to start to take a turn down too. But I still think he's definitely a top 10, top 20 pick for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to the Knicks, the last team in the Eastern Division, and their key departures were Nerlens Noel, Taj Gibson, Alex Burks, Kemba Walker, who really didn't play for them. Their addition, of course, their big addition was Jalen Brunson. They also added quietly Isaiah Hartenstein.
Love that pickup.
Yeah, quiet but good pickup. And lastly, their draft pick was Trevor Keels, who didn't look so good in Summer League. What do we make of the Knicks, Drew?
So when you look at their roster from just a standpoint of depth, one thing I do like about their roster is that every position they have a guy right behind the supposed starter that could step in, which is, I think, is a boon. That's an advantage in the NBA. Like Brunson is backed up by Derrick Rose, which you're like, okay, I can live with that. Grimes is backed up by Quickly. I can live with that. Barrett, Fournier, and then Cam Reddish if they decide to use him. They have pieces there. Julius Randle has Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson is Hartenstein. I love Isaiah Hartenstein. I think he's kind of like that perfect backup big. He kind of different players, obviously, but like I get like that Kevon Looney vibe from him where you're just like, you plug him in and you're like, he's going to play good quality minutes for me, whether it's starter, bench. So I'm a big Isaiah Hartenstein guy. But, I just think that this team isn't really going to go anywhere. I mean, is Brunson that good? Is he that good to be like able to carry your team? And no, he's not. I mean, people forget, sometimes we talk about in fantasy and real life, like, oh, so-and-so left the superstar. Like he's not there with Luka. He's going to be able to thrive. Maybe Luka made Brunson because teams are like, you have to respect Luka Doncic as a top 5 player in the world right now, right around that situation.
Oh, sure.
So maybe Brunson just kind of feasted on that. Now teams are going to look at this lineup and go, yeah, we're taking away Brunson and Randall as the 1-2, and Barrett, however you want to view those guys. And you look at this team and you're like, every other team we've talked about has a proven star, like a proven guy that we're all willing to say could push into, like Kevin Durant, we think still top 10. Kyrie Irving is still, when he plays is Kyrie Irving. Brown and Tatum are better than any guy on this roster. Siakam is probably better than any guy on this roster. Joel Embiid is better than anybody on this roster. So am I going to stack Jalen Brunson? Can I expect Jalen Brunson to outduel Joel Embiid 50 games into the season with a playoff spot on the line? Hell no. Maybe he does, and I'm wrong. Great, but it's the Knicks, man. I claimed them to be the most dysfunctional franchise in our last episode. I stick by that. Giving Brunson this much money, I guess he's being paid as the 16th overall point guard, which is right where he literally finished 16, I think, in fantasy and in real life.
That makes sense. Yeah,
but,
I don't think they broke the bank on him.
Yeah, like looking back, I think we were all a little too harsh on that contract, myself included. But I'm like, is Quentin Grimes really who you want to be as your starting 2 guard? In Madison Square Garden, probably not. Barrett, he's a scorer, but you took him the 3rd overall pick. And I think Randall has had his one great year, and I think he's what he is. He's a 16-point scorer, 8-9 rebound a game guy. If you get 35% from 3, you're happy. And Robinson, we've been talking about Mitchell Robinson's potential for 4 seasons. Is it going to happen? At this point, probably not. It's why they brought in Hartenstein. So Knicks don't make the playoffs again, another wasted year. And I think Brunson, I don't want to say gets exposed, but I think Brunson disappoints statistically.
Interesting.
Mav?
So I agree. I don't think the Knicks are going to make the playoffs. I don't think that they should expect to make the playoffs either. I'm going to say this. I don't think that Luka made Brunson. I think that the system that Dallas ran last year it emphasized Brunson's strengths everywhere. Because in the playoffs, when you were watching Brunson, and specifically against the Jazz, because that's what a lot of Knicks fans will allude to. You're going to have Maxey, Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, and Spencer out there, and are basically going to just 5 out and run pick and roll. And Brunson really wants to get into the paint and shoot mid-range shots. He's not a high-volume three-point shooter. I believe he shot 3 a game last year with the Mavs. He's not really good on spot-up either. He was exposed in the Golden State series whenever they put Draymond Green on him. Because what Draymond would do was just sag off him a little bit and say, hey, if you can beat me off the dribble into the paint, props to you. With New York, my issue is you have 3 left-handed mid-range slashers who all operate on the right side of the floor. If you put anyone else on the left side, the middle, or in the corner, they're all going to be worse with efficiency because they want to operate on the right side. They want to use their left hand to get to the middle. So I have no idea what Coach Thibodeau is going to do about that because any of those 3 players are going to struggle efficiency-wise if you put them anywhere besides the right side. So it's going to be it'll be a struggle. I agree. It's another wasted year. I thought they should have tanked this year because it's not like they were going to get anyone in free agency, but obviously they had different plans.
Well, I think the best this team can hope for is 41 wins. 500.
500.
Yeah, that's the best, and I don't think they're getting there. They don't have the same spacing that Dallas does. Barrett is not a great shooter. Randall is spotty. Robinson can't shoot a lick. So it will be more crowded in the paint for Brunson. I will say though, Grimes is a beautiful shooter, and I think he is their one hope. If he somehow, I think he's going to surpass Evan Fournier, and he's going to start ahead of him. At least eventually. I think Fournier is a nice guy at this point in his career to come off the bench and give you an offensive spark. I also think he's going to pass quickly, and I think he's going to be that 2 guard. And now the question is, he has the potential, especially on this roster, to be the best shooter on the team. And because they don't have a lot of shooters. And so if he somehow, develops into a guy who puts down 15 to 20 a game, all right, maybe this team makes playoffs, but that's a lot to expect from a second-year guy who didn't do much as a rookie.
And playing in Madison Square Garden, the pressure, it's just a lot.
Right,
it's a lot.
Right, but I will say the Knicks did not want to include him. They knew, he's kind of like the key to making this work, especially with Brunson. And they did not want to trade him and all the just trade talks that they have. The one guy I don't get is Mitchell Robinson. I don't know why they didn't trade him away, especially if you were going to sign, Isaiah Hartenstein. Is it Steen or Stein?
Stein, I think.
Okay,
Hartenstein. I think it's Hartenstein.
Okay. Obviously Hartenstein doesn't play the defense that Mitchell Robinson does, but he's a much better offensive player. And you have Jericho Sims, who's just a gifted athlete, who I think is ready to contribute as a number 2 guy. So I would have rather seen them get somebody good for Mitchell Robinson than, they didn't break the bank with him. I think it's like he's getting somewhere between 10 and 15 mil a year. I think it's closer to 15 a year. But still, I think Mitchell Robinson's already peaked out, and fantasy wise, I would avoid, investing a lot into him. Cause I wouldn't be surprised if Sims and Hartenstein get a lot of playing time. All right. So starting off in the Southeast, we'll talk about the reigning champs, I believe, right? They were the reigning champs, Miami, last year.
Of the Southeast, I believe. Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So this team has not really made much changes. They lost Markieff Morris, who didn't really play for them much last year, and P.J. Tucker, who was a valuable contributor. And in the draft, they added Nikola Jovic, the young 18, 19-year-old stretch 4, who probably won't play for him much. So, Drew, what are your thoughts on the Heat?
I love Jimmy Butler. I love the intensity he brings. Kyle Lowry's been an outstanding leader and stalwart at the point guard position in the league for 8-10 years now. But I think this team might disappoint. They didn't really add anything. They lost. You lose PJ Tucker, who again, statistically in the box score, he's not going to light it up, but he fits the culture. He brings that toughness. He's been a playoff guy for 10 years. Markieff Morris, same kind of thing. He's been to the playoffs. He contributes a level of toughness and energy. I think this team might disappoint. I really do. Kyle Lowry is showing the signs of decline that, probably helped kind of allow the Raptors to push him out the back door and let go of him. Hero, he's kind of has yet to put together like multiple seasons of consistent play. He popped in the bubble, then he kind of disappointed, and then last year he was solid, but like he's really got to come into his own as not just a six man, but like a secondary star. Like he needs to become, for this team to compete. I'm not saying he will, or I think that he is, but he's going to need to become almost kind of like a big three member with Bam and Jimmy. And I just don't think that's Hero's game. I mean, he's best as a sixth man, mid-tier starter. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, but you have to wonder, are those miles going to eventually catch up to him? We saw it in the playoffs a little bit. When he was dialed in and focused and rested and healthy, he's a force. But then he disappears some games here, and I don't think it's necessarily a lack of effort. I just think his body is just it wears on him. I mean, he's got all those Thibodeau miles from the Bulls, and now he's been carrying this team, and he's bounced around. So he's going to hit a wall one day, and when he does, I just don't know if the Heat can overcome. Caleb Martin, I think, is, again, solid rotational piece, but then you look at Duncan Robinson, and you're like, for fantasy, Duncan Robinson, you're like, okay, maybe especially in category-specific scoring, I want the shooting. But then in real life, you're like, doesn't really give me anything else other than the shooting. And we saw last year when he's not hitting the three ball at an insanely high clip, he doesn't give you anything. And you paid him a lot of money. Bam is one of the better centers in the league. He's super versatile, can guard multiple positions. But again, I go, is Bam a 20-point per game scorer? He hasn't really been close. He's more of a 15 points, 10 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, maybe a block and a half, which is great overall.
I don't even think he gets a block and a half. That's part of the problem. I mean, the guy's 6'8", 6'9". He's not really much of he's a great defender, but he's not much of a shot blocker.
Exactly. So you look at this team and you're like, so you've got Jimmy Butler as your star, who there's even going to be people who question, is he really a true star? And then you got Tyler Hero, who we've yet to see put together. Bam, who's, I don't want to say a role player, but he's like he kind of fits in that Draymond Green category where it's like he's great for what they do, but he doesn't win you games. And then, Kyle Lowry's fading. So I think this team's going to disappoint. The reality of it is their division's not that great. And when you look at it top to bottom, like there's questions on every other team. So I still think they have the inside track just on great coaching from Spo, who has proven me wrong and has come into his own as a great head coach. And they probably have the most proven talent, but I think this team will disappoint.
Mm-hmm. Mav?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. They're so, Coach Spo, he's such a good coach. He's proven me wrong multiple times, not even just like last year, but even years before that when Hassan Whiteside was starting center. I didn't think they were going to be that good then. But they lost PJ Tucker. You could go and grab Crowder if you could make a deal work and replace his production. I still think that they got worse because they didn't add anything else. I think the thing with the Heat, and it seems like every offseason they're in the trade discussion. They eventually have to make a trade. If they really want to get to that the next step, the next level, they're going to have to eventually make a trade for a proven scorer. They wanted Donovan Mitchell. They didn't get that done. I know they were in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. That really wasn't even a possibility to even begin with. It's eventually they're going to have to make some sort of move, probably including Tyler Hero, because they don't even have apparently discussions haven't even begun. He's going to want to start. Miami sees him as sixth man. I think rightfully so. It's all just going to come down to a move. If they don't make a move, I think they will disappoint, just like Drew was saying.
Yeah, even getting Crowder probably isn't enough to push this team into title contention. I agree. Spoelstra and the Heat in general, that organization always gets more out of the team than they look on paper. And I would suspect, when you look at this roster, it looks like a average roster at best. But they're going to outperform that. But even with Crowder, I still don't think that pushes them into championship contention. And, to me, who's going to, let's say, even, Hero's going to get starting minutes, even if he's not the starter. Okay. But that leaves still a gap at that one spot that PJ Tucker. So from a fantasy perspective and even a practical perspective, who is this team? Who is going to be the fifth and sixth guys? And you have like maybe five candidates. You have Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Victor Oladipo, Duncan Robinson, Khalid Martin. And are any of those guys really NBA starters? I don't think so.
Maybe Oladipo if he can somehow recapture, but it's a maybe, big maybe.
You just stole my point, and that's where I was about to say. And okay, but let's say Oladipo is that guy, but then who's the sixth man? I mean, really? I mean, Khalid Martin. He's your sixth best guy. That's scary. But here's one hope I think this team has, and it's a stretch. I mean, we're talking championship wise. And that's Victor Oladipo somehow playing close to the way he used to. And I think that's a stretch. I think he's a fantasy sleeper. But at the same time, I think it's a stretch. I think this team's going to struggle to win the division. And I actually don't think they're going to win the division. I think the next team we're talking about will. So I just think a lack of depth. But as Maverick said, that Heat prove us wrong many, many times before. So moving on to the Hawks now. They lost Gallinari, DeLon Wright, Kevin Huerter, Lou Williams, still a free agent, by the way, Kevin Knox, Skylar Mays, neither who played a ton. But they bring in DeJounte Murray, Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, Aaron Holiday, Frank Kaminsky. They also added draft picks AJ Griffin, Tyrese Martin. So a lot of shuffling going on here, but the core, really, the main change is Murray, replaces Huerter, I would say. And that to me is an upgrade. So Drew, what do you got here?
Yeah. So like on paper, you look at this team and you have to like it. I mean, you look at their backcourt and are there, from just the point guard, shooting guard, or the 1-2 position, can you name that many backcourts that are better than theirs on paper? Probably not. I mean, we know Trae Young is extremely lethal on offense. The defense leaves a lot to be desired. But then you have DeJounte Murray, who has been a great perimeter defender, who averaged 2 steals a game, I think like 2 or 3 years in a row or something like that. So, I love the DeJounte Murray pick. He's been a ride or die fantasy player for me over the years. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag. You're not going to get him as cheap as you did in the past in your fantasy drafts. But I love that addition. DeAndre Hunter, I think, is like just needs to stay healthy for a full season. But he's like right on that cusp of not stardom, but like kind of like that Mikal Bridges type role where he's like very high end 3-and-D guy. Like he's right there. He just has to stay healthy, which Bridges has done and Hunter has not. John Collins fascinates me. I think from a box score production, you're like, yeah, he's a 20-10 guy or 18-10 guy. But like, does he want to stay on this? There's still questions there. He's been in the trade rumor basically nonstop the last 2 years. But now that they have DeJounte, maybe they've kind of tampered that down. And then Clint Capella, for what he does as a rim running, shot blocking, rebounding big, you're happy with him. But again, another guy that like needs to stay healthy. I like this team. I think on paper, this is the team that's going to win the division. I still have questions about, is the coaching going to be able to put it together? How does Trae Young and DeJounte Murray work out? DeJounte went from the Spurs where he was the team and had the ball in his hands and got to do whatever he wanted to a situation where Trae's running the offense. And, Trae Young is a really interesting player to me as a whole. He's great. But the way I analyze Trae Young is he's so bad defensively. And some of that's just the physical limitations. It's not necessarily an effort thing that if he's not giving you like top 3 or 4 production as a scoring guard, he's not a net negative, but he doesn't move the needle. And that's a problem for your best player. You look at a guy like Steph Curry, who he's compared to. Steph at least competes on defense. He's led the league in steals before. He knows how to play within that system. So he's just such a boon. With Trae Young, when you get to the playoffs and teams are playing you 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row, they're going to go at him. And in the Eastern Conference, where there's great wings and great guards, can Trae Young hold up? And then can DeJounte Murray play off the ball and, keep everything tight? He kind of seemed to lose it a little bit when he left the Spurs. He was going on some Twitter tirade. So, I think this is a team that's going to have to stem the early season struggles. I think they're like not be bad, but they're going to be like slightly over 500, competitive, trying to put it together. But if they piece this thing together in the playoffs, they can not only win the division, but they could definitely make some noise. And I like their bench. I think we've talked about it a lot, Rich. I think AJ Griffin was a good pick. Bogdanovich is kind of that third guard in that rotation, gives you 3 really solid guards. And if Hunter stays healthy with guys like Griffin and Holiday, they've got decent wing depth. It's just a matter of if they can get through the whole season of putting it together.
Maverick?
The Hawks filled a ton of holes they had last year that didn't make them much of a threat. In the playoffs, we saw them be exposed. And they look really, really good on paper. But like Drew was saying, there are going to be a lot of adjustments. Let's just talk about just Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. On paper, they're the perfect fit. One's an elite defensive guard. He can rebound. He can pass. He can score on the inside. He's a pretty okay outside shooter. He's improved each year. And Trae Young is an offensive powerhouse with, just an extreme defensive liability. Trae Young's usage rate last year was 4th in the league. DeJounte Murray's usage rate last year was 25th in the league. Already right there, you're going to have a little bit of clashing in the early season. I don't really have any concerns about them figuring it out. I have concerns about the other guys, because guys like DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, John Collins, who has had issues with how the offense is being played with only Trae Young. Now you're adding the 25th ranked usage rate player in DeJounte Murray. You still have Clint Capella. He doesn't need the ball to be effective, but he's still going to put up his 13 points a game just on straight lobs. There's other concerns with it. There might not be enough ball for everybody. So, a John Collins move, it makes sense now more than ever because, you already have your lob threat. Collins is going to be just an outside guy, and I get that DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, I believe they average 18 to 19 assists combined. But those are just the really spot-up guys in lobs. John Collins doesn't want to be that. Bogdan Bogdanovic doesn't want to be that. So there's a little bit of issue there that they'll have to iron out, but I still believe that they're going to be first in the division and be a threat this year in the playoffs, definitely in the East.
From a fantasy perspective, you have to think that both Young and Murray's numbers are going to drop, especially Murray. Murray was out of this world last year, and so I think they're both going to cancel each other out a little bit. One guy I would watch would be Okongwu. Capella seems like he's on the down side of the curve, and Okongwu is on the upswing. So I think their minutes might start to even out, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if Okongwu maybe ends up playing more minutes. If not this year, next year for sure. The only concern I have with this team, you guys brought up a lot of valid points. Can John Collins, mix in with these guys? But I really think they need him. I think he's piece number 3. So if they get rid of him, they got to replace him with another piece number 3. And my concern is if there's a front court injury to Hunter or Collins, who do you go to then? Mo Harkless, we know, is not a starter. Jalen Johnson is the guy immediately comes to mind, but he had a rough rookie season. So is he going to turn out to be the player that we thought he was, when he was a projected lottery pick? That he could be the key. If he makes that next step in his development, this team could be really, really tough to beat. And eventually, maybe he does allow them to get rid of Collins. But I think that's a year or two away. All right, moving on is the Charlotte Hornets, who they've promptly and rudely have gotten bounced out of the play-in games the last couple of years. This year they've lost Harrell, was basically their main loss. They added no real key free agents, but in the draft, they added Mark Williams, center out of Duke, and Bryce McGowan's the wing out of Nebraska. And of course, they have the issue of Miles Bridges hanging over their head. And from everything I've heard so far, he's facing 3 felony assault charges, and could be, I think it's somewhere between
11 or almost 12 years. It's like 11 years, 8 months is the max.
Right. So, so we're looking at, he could be facing a lot of jail time. Does he somehow get out of this? Most people are saying, his career may be over. And where he stands contractually is they have a qualifying offer out to him. I think it's only something like $7 million or something like that. And that would then make him an unrestricted free agent, I believe. Do I have that right? Yeah.
So if he accepts it, he will then be an unrestricted free agent. He'll be on the roster for 1 year for the $7 million, and then his next year he'll get to be an unrestricted.
Of course, their other option would be working out a long-term deal, but right now he was looking at a huge payday. And actually this happened, like this arrest or whatever, at least it was announced just before free agency opened. I mean, we're talking like hours within free agency. So in that way, I suppose it was fortunate for the Hornets that they found out before they gave him $40 million a year.
Yeah.
But okay, so looking over this team, I mean, you could, on one hand, you could say it's loaded with talent. On the other, you could say, whew, what a mess. So what do we got here, Drew?
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely lean towards the oof, what a mess. The joke for the last couple of years has been they're a fun team to watch, and they are. Like a LaMelo Ball-led offense is going to be fun. He's a flashy player. He puts up, numbers across the stat sheet. This is a team that has plenty of relevant fantasy pieces, I think. But as an actual NBA team, they strike no fear in anyone's heart, especially with Bridges probably being done. Whether or not Bridges faces jail time, look, I know professional athletes, there's a very bad track record of them getting out of this, getting their second chances. But in professional sports, the NBA is definitely a little bit more sensitive to these types of things compared to like the NFL, for example. So even if, Bridges does come out of this with no jail time, his career could be over either way. There's going to be a lot of franchises, I think, that won't take him because of the baggage and the accusations. And even if it's going to be, it's a different story, but I think Bridges might be done no matter what. So, you look at LaMelo Ball, he's fine, but I don't think LaMelo Ball's a winner. I think that's what it boils down to. I think he's a stat sheet stuffer. Russell Westbrookian in the sense of like he's going to give you his numbers, get threatened for a triple-double, but I don't think he impacts winning. Rozier's kind of the same thing. He'll get you his 18 points a game, but you're like, okay, that's great, but are you contributing to a winning organization? I still haven't forgiven Kelly Oubre for his disappearing act with the Golden State Warriors a couple of years ago. So, I'm out on him. Go be an Instagram model, bro. I'm done. PJ Washington, I think, is an interesting prospect. I think he'll put up numbers. But again, I'm like, is he good enough? Like fantasy-wise, I draft PJ Washington with the hope of him, giving me 10, 12 points, maybe 6, 7 rebounds, but he's not going to be a massive contributor. Fun fact, I was once in a league a couple of years ago where someone took PJ Washington in the second round over the likes of players like Joel Embiid because he was due for a breakout and they didn't want to miss it. So that you can imagine where they finished in the league. I happily was like, okay, I will take, was that LeBron James in the second round or whoever the hell it was. And then Mark Williams, I think, is going to be one of the more NBA-ready rookies in terms of his role. Like, he's not going to ever be, I think, a superstar a la Jokic, but I think he can come into the league and definitely be a double-double guy, akin to like a Clint Capella. So I'm out on them as being any kind of NBA contender. If they make the play-in game, they'll get mollywopped again. I don't even think they're good enough to make the play-in game without Bridges. You just lost your best scoring option. They'll be fun to watch every once in a while, and LaMelo's going to have a couple of triple-doubles. But other than that, man, this is not a team that's ready to make any noise. Not the way the East is shaping up.
Maverick?
Yeah, the Hornets are not going to make the playoffs. I'd be very surprised if they made the playoffs. I would be very surprised if they made the play-in. I don't think that they're a play-in team. I'm looking more towards a semi-high lottery pick for them. Mark Williams is probably going to average about 8-8 his first year. He's going to benefit a lot from LaMelo, and then Terry's going to put up probably 20. From a fantasy standpoint, this is amazing. I mean, this is just a gold mine. You got PJ Washington. He's going to get a lot of minutes. Mark Williams is going to probably be pretty low. He'll get you a couple of blocks, a couple of rebounds. But just from the East standpoint, it's not good at all. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were thinking. I know they've talked a lot about trading Gordon Hayward for Miles Turner to fill their center position. Then they were talking earlier this month about Terry Rozier to the Lakers for, I'm guessing, to pair Russell Westbrook up with Jordan. I don't know how those benefit the Hornets. But yeah, I mean, this is probably going to be a pretty high lottery pick year for them, which is good. Pair someone up with LaMelo and build around that core and see where that goes, rather than just forcing your way to winning. Because back-to-back terrible play-in games is not what you want to be as a franchise.
Right. Yeah, I think they're all hope is lost without Bridges. This is definitely going to be a bad year for them. I think what you're going to see is guys like Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, Mason Plumlee, even maybe Rozier, are their minutes, especially in the second half of the season, might dwindle. Let's be honest. I mean, Rozier is a nice guy, but I mean, ultimately, if this was a championship team, he'd be either your sixth man. So what does that mean in terms of fantasy terms? Obviously, PJ Washington is the immediate benefactor from Bridges, but he is not going to put up big numbers. PJ Washington is one of those steady guys, like a Royce O'Neal or whatever. He's that type of guy. He's never going to give you big numbers. And so the guys that have the potential to put up the big numbers and could end up getting a lot of playing time are Bouknight, JT Thor, Kai Jones, and Mark Williams. And Williams, I think, might start right away, and I can see him and Ball being pretty devastating pair in the pick and roll. Williams is also a better rim protector than anybody they have on the current roster. So as long as he can play on the perimeter defensively, if he can do that immediately, he'll start from the get-go. If he can't, maybe he only starts in the second half of the season. But Bouknight is the guy I think they got to give a long look at to see how he pairs with LaMelo. And then Thor and Kai Jones, I think those are the two guys you want to look at. Can they be the long-term replacements for Bridges? And to me, I would give the nod to Thor. I think Kai Jones he's been nothing but a tease his whole career, and I think he's going to continue to be that. But Thor, I think you're going to see steady progression from him, and I think he might turn out to be a very dynamic a forward, kind of a 3-4 switchable 3-4 stretch 4 type of guy. He's very long, athletic. Him and Kai Jones have a lot of similarities. Jones is a little taller, but I think Thor is more mobile, more capable of making plays with the ball in his hands. Fantasy-wise, they're interesting, but they're not making the playoffs, which Drew said. So moving on to a team we're going to talk about. We won't let's not spend a ton of time on the Wizards, because our guest is going to talk a lot about this team, and that's the Washington Wizards. But just to review, they lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Thomas Bryant, Ish Smith, Raul Neto, and Thomas Satoransky. And what they're gaining is DeLon Wright, Taj Gibson, Monte Morris, Will Barton, and draft-wise, they got Johnny Davis, who was a disappointment in the Summer League, and Yannick Zoza, who is going to play in Spain this year, so we won't see him. and he's very young, very raw project. So a lot of so-so names being swapped in and out. I just don't know how much this team has changed. Drew?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. Not a substantial change. I mean, look, it's going to be Porzingis and the Bradley Beal show. That's their big two. That's what they're going to ride with. Kuzma's a fine piece. Hachimura has been fine for his role. You know, outside of Will Barton having an outstanding last name, he's just just a guy. He's solid. He's just a guy. Monte Morris and Delon Wright, I do like, but I like them more as backup point guards, not as starting point guards. And, Porzingis hasn't been able to put together a really solid stretch of basketball since he left the Knicks, so maybe that changes. I think the one thing I want to focus on is I'm concerned about Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal might be pushing towards – he's not over the hill, but I think Bradley Beal is on the decline. I mean, you pull up his stats, and first and foremost, he's only played 40 games last year. He played 60 the year before that and 57 the year before that. So,
yeah, doesn't this contract he just got seem like 2 years too late?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I think they should have traded him.
Right. I agree.
They needed to trade him 100%. Yeah. It was a mistake to sign him to anything. And it's not a knock on Bradley.
This team should be in rebuild mode, and they should have signed and traded him.
Yes. It's not a knock on him. By all accounts, he's a good leader. He's a good basketball player. So it's not like a Russell Westbrook situation where you're kind of paying him because he's petulantly childish. Like
actually, Westbrook played pretty well for this team. And
exactly. I just am concerned. He's missing time. That's a problem. Field goal percentage, worst it's been since 2015, I think, when I looked it up. That's not good. 3-point percentage was bad. For a scoring guard, he was at 30%. He was taking 5-6 attempts a game last year. Lowest it's been in half a decade. Scoring, lowest it's been in close to half a decade. And you're like, if that's what you do, and those are on the decline, and you can't stay healthy, that's a problem. So I think the Wizards are, I don't want to say in trouble because there is talent on the team, but should have traded Beal, should have entered rebuild mode. This is going to be another Washington Wizards year, basically sans John Wall. They're going to be, at best, if they have everything falls right, maybe they're a play-in team at like the 10 spot, maybe the 9, but they're probably missing the playoffs again. And I think they're going to look to move Bradley Beal after this year, which is going to be hard to do because of that contract.
Mav?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it pretty short. I mean, just looking at the roster, it's just another mediocre roster again for the Wizards. I mean, they traded some mid-tier pieces for other mid-tier pieces, and I mean, just like Drew was saying, at the very best, you could see them replace the Hornets from this year into the play-in team and probably lose the first game. So, I mean, it's just going to be. I mean, the Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kyle Kuzma show on offense, they could have a pretty good offense this year.
Yeah.
It could be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, those are pretty solid offensive pieces.
Yeah, that's a nice
defense
three.
is going to be terrible. Yeah, the defense is going to be terrible. It's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
So that'll be their issue, but just a mediocre team.
Yep. And then, and they've been in this spot where, they get, mid-range to late lottery picks, like, Davis, Avia, Hachimura, and none of those guys have, none of those guys did we expect to be superstars, all-star type of players. We never expected that. Maybe Avia, and I think he has, the most upside of anybody in that group. And I'm including Corey Kispert in that group. But Avia, now he got hurt over the summer playing for the national team in Israel. And he's starting off the training camp with a groin problem. So, I agree with Maverick. Bradley, Kuzma, KP makes a nice, combination. If those guys stay healthy, yeah, this team could, maybe win 40, 42, 43 games. And, I definitely think they pass the Hornets and they're the team that gets to play in, here. But yeah, that's not much more expected from them. And so now we'll bring on our guest, Chase Hughes, and see what his opinion is on the Wizards. And I'm sure he'll contradict us in many ways. Today's special guest is Chase Hughes, who covers the Washington Wizards for NBC Sports Washington. Chase is not only an on-air personality, but also a writer, and you can read his latest articles on the Wizards at www.nbcsports.com/Washington/Chase-Hughes. All righty. That's a mouthful. Chase, thanks so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Doing good. I appreciate you reading out the full URL.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to get it right. I know you have a 2-year-old, and you were concerned about being a dad and doing this interview at the same time. So I guess you managed to work that out.
Yeah, scheduled it after her bedtime.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that I do now are like during her nap and after her bedtime.
Right. I hear you. I haven't been there for a while, but you never forget when they're between the ages of 1 and 3.
Right. It's mostly a good age, but of course there are some moments.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of I once, and a lot of no's.
Exactly. And then when they don't know what to say, they just cry.
Right. Well, I do too. So
Right.
All right. So moving on, we'll talk about, the Wizards have been teetering on the edge of the playoffs for the last few years. Last season, the team finished 12th in the conference, 8 games away from making the play-in game. So by doing so, the club has been landing draft picks in kind of like the mid to late lottery range. And right now, in my estimation, the way the offseason moves that they made, it appears that they're not really interested in a total rebuild or tanking, as it's known. Would you say that's true? And do you think that is a mistake, that they haven't kind of gone all in with a rebuild?
Well, they're definitely not interested in a full rebuild or a tank. And their owner, Ted Leonsis, has said that on the record. We will never tank. That was a quote that he gave when the Wizards went to London to play the Knicks that people continue to cite. And you've seen it, of course, in a lot of their moves. Re-signing Bradley Beal to a Supermax contract, that was a move that essentially represented the opposite of a rebuild and a tank. So along the way, they've kept their first-round picks. They haven't bottomed out entirely, but they have made an effort to keep their first-round picks, of course, aside from the one that they traded along with John Wall to get rid of that contract and bring over Russell Westbrook. But they've tried to keep their draft picks and build through the draft. And whether it's a mistake, I don't think it's a mistake to follow the plan that they've done. But what they have done is they've made it so they really need to hit on their draft picks at some point. And I think they've made some good draft picks, but I think they need one of these guys to really make a leap forward. And maybe by charting this course, they probably at some point need to think in terms of, a really aggressive trade to kind of vault them from the middle of the conference into contention. So I think the plan could work. It's just they've got to have a few things go their way that haven't gone their way yet.
Right. Okay. I'm going to pass you over to Maverick for the second question.
Yeah. So, the Wizards, they struggled to find a consistent and suitable point guard to play next to Bradley Beal ever since the departure of John Wall. Is the organization confident in their newly added guards in DeLon Wright and Monte Morris? Or, speaking about a trade earlier, do you foresee them making any other moves for a lead guard?
I think they feel good about their point guard rotation right now. I do worry a little bit about the depth just because beyond those two, it's not really clear who the third point guard is. But in Monte Morris, they have a guy who I think proved himself capable of being a full-time NBA starter last year when he stepped in behind Jamal Murray in Denver. And, of course, he's got the history with Wes Unseld Jr., and he's a young guy. He's still got plenty to prove in the NBA, so I like his upside. Pretty good shooter, good passer, and DeLon Wright brings the defense and the size and also a pretty good three-point shot. So I think they've got a pretty decent point guard rotation. I think they've upgraded from where they were at the end of last season. Now, is it a top 10 point guard rotation? No. I saw the other day CBS ranked the best point guards in the league, and Monte Morris wasn't in there. They did the top 22. So he's probably somewhere in the bottom third among starting point guards, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You just need someone, if you have a good supporting cast around him, someone who can set the table and spread the floor a little bit. And I think Morris can do those things. So I don't necessarily think you have to have a star point guard to win in the league as long as you have stars elsewhere.
Agreed. I agree. This year's top pick, Johnny Davis, struggled in summer league action, averaged only 8.3 points per game, shot just 30% from the floor. Obviously a very small sample, but that didn't prevent people on social media just going on and on and on, already calling him a bust. Are you concerned about Davis? I know there was some talk that he might not have been 100% healthy. And what are your expectations for him this season in terms of role and overall production?
Yeah, he was dealing with a back issue, back tightness during the summer league. That kind of explained his struggles a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I think it set the bar for what to expect from him this year, which is probably a slow start, and maybe by the end of the season, he can crack the rotation. Kind of like how Corey Kispert fared last season in his rookie year. He was a little bit better than Johnny Davis in the summer league, but he came into training camp and really had to wait his turn, and I think it was frustrating for him. But he came out of it on the other end perhaps better off because he improved every single month. He raised his field goal percentage every single month. And by the end of the season, he was their full-time starter at the 2 position because Bradley Beal went out with a season-ending left wrist surgery. So I think Johnny Davis could do the same thing. There's some depth at his position that he's going to have to navigate. But as long as he provides tough defense on the perimeter, I think he'll find some daylight in the rotation because that's what the Wizards need very badly, and that's one of his biggest strengths.
Right. One thing that's always concerned me about Johnny, it was impressive on one hand, but yet concerning on the other as a draft evaluator, was I don't think there was another player out there in the country that made as many difficult shots as he did. And a lot of them were 2-pointers. And so the question that came to my mind is if this guy is, on one hand, it shows a great ability to be able to get those shots up against tight defense and so forth. But on the other hand, you really like to see him, just knock down some standalone threes and also, work his way so that he's not always, got somebody smothering him. So did any of those have you made any of those observations in when you've been watching him? Has he made any strides? Is this a catch and shoot guy, or being able to kind of buy some more space so he doesn't have to make these circus-like shots?
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously 3-point shooting wasn't really his game at Wisconsin. He shot 30% from 3 last year, and where he was at his best offensively was with the ball in his hands, in the mid-range, working in tight spaces. He was pretty good off the dribble at creating for himself. But as we saw in the summer league, there's going to be an adjustment for him. It's one thing to be able to score in the mid-range and score around the rim, but you got to get there first.
Right.
And in the summer league, we saw just the difference in quickness and length and size give him some trouble. And that's only going to be, to an even greater degree at the NBA level. So without a reliable 3-point shot, it's going to be tough for the same moves that worked at Wisconsin to work right away in the NBA. So I think at a minimum, he's got to be more aggressive looking for his 3-point shot. And I think that was a big takeaway for him and from the coaching staff after Summer League, because particularly in his first game, I don't think he attempted a field goal in his first 8 minutes, because a lot of it was he'd get the ball in the slot or just on the wing, and he'd be gun shy. And then he tried to dribble past people, and finally he was taking some shots, but they were contested. A lot of it resulted in turnovers. He struggled with turnovers in the Summer League. So I think at a minimum, he's going to have to at least take the shot and hopefully over time make them so that teams will respect his outside shot, and that'll open up some of the driving lanes and his ability to actually get in the mid-range.
Exactly.
But that's also going to be interesting to see how they balance lineups with that, because there's a few guys on the Wizards roster that favor the mid-range.
Right. But yeah, I definitely see if he can get that shot going, then he can open. It will automatically give him some more space. I'm going to pass you back to Maverick.
So Kristaps Porzingis was acquired last year at the trade deadline, and he played excellent for the Wizards. In 17 appearances, he averaged 22.1 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, and shot 36.7% from 3. However, it is no secret he has struggled to stay on the floor throughout his career due to injuries. He seemingly had a pretty healthy offseason, and he's played in the Eurobasket this summer with Latvia. What are some of the expectations for KP this year with the Wizards?
I think they're pretty high. I mean, they want him to be the second guy next to Bradley Beal on a team that makes the playoffs. And he's going to have to stay healthy in order to do that. I mean, they've got some pretty decent depth, including his position. If he did go down, Daniel Gafford can step in. Taj Gibson, even though he's 37, still has some left in the tank. He's a pretty decent player, pretty decent third option in a center rotation. But they need Kristaps Porzingis to be healthy and to be their second scoring option. I think what we saw down the stretch from him is exactly what they're hoping for, is about 20 points a game, 8-9 rebounds, protect the rim on the other end. But he's got to stay healthy in order to provide that value. And of course, we all know that the Dallas Mavericks gave up on him because he just couldn't stay healthy. It wasn't necessarily how he produced on the court. But he's missed, since he came back from his ACL surgery, he's missed about a third of his team's games. And if you're talking about him only being out there 2/3 of the time and being banged up for a portion of that, then it can really affect where your team finishes in the standings. So I think they, of course, want him to stay healthy, anchor their defense, and form an inside-out combination with Bradley Beal that they hope other teams have difficulty stopping.
Chase, going back to the draft, which of course is our focus here, the Wizards have acquired Johnny Davis, Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, and Corey Kispert over the past 3 years. Out of that group, who do you expect to start this year, and who, just pick one, do you think will take the most positive strides and be the most productive contributor?
Well, the one starting job that's up for grabs right now is the 3 spot, and I think it's going to be Will Barton. Denny Avdia has a chance, I think, to take that role, but Will Barton just has so much experience starting for a really good team in Denver, and he's also got the history with Wes Unseld Jr., and he also kind of fits the mold of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, whom he was traded for, and who also last season was the one guy who was never really moved around in their rotation. Like Wes Unseld Jr. changed everything but having KCP at the 3. So I think Will Barton's got the leg up there. But Denny Avdia would give them size and defense at that position, and I think he's the guy who's going to take the biggest leap forward of the recent first-round picks, because he took a step forward last offseason, and that was despite entering it with a broken ankle, which included several step backs in his rehab. It was a shortened offseason, and he battled through an injury for the majority of it, and he still came back and raised his shooting percentages and showed more flashes on the defensive end. He had a strong offseason. He was healthy. He had a little bit of a groin issue playing for his national team with Israel, but for the most part, he was healthy. It was a full offseason. He thrived as the leader of Team Israel. I think, the stage is set for him to come back and take a big step forward. But Corey Kispert and Rui Hachimura are also capable. I mean, we saw Rui last year, similar but different to Denny Avdia, coming off an unusual offseason where he missed a bunch of time and still improved. In his case, it was his 3-point shot. But if I had to pick one, I'd say Denny Avdia.
Okay. All right. And if you're curious, we had, of the 4, Denny was the highest guy we had on our draft board. I think that season, we had him 6th overall. So, well, with Rui, I think we had him like maybe 10th overall. So it was pretty close. But
yeah, that was closer than a lot of people had Rui. I mean, I think most people had him probably between 15 and 20. And it was one of those instances where the instant reactions were, oh, they reached. And, he made all rookie, which validated the decision a little bit. But of course, entering the final year of his rookie deal in a contract year, it's going to be a big one for him for sure.
Yeah, don't hold me to that. I know we had him somewhere between 10 and 15. But I know we also had Denny somewhere between 5 and 9. So yeah, don't remember the exact numbers. I'd have to look on our site. All right, I'm going to pass you over to Mav.
Kyle Kuzma, he played some of the best basketball of his career. I mean, he had career high averages in rebounds per game, assists per game, and blocks per game, all while averaging 17.1 points per game. How important is his continued development going to be for the Wizards this year?
I think it'll be very important because he's the third scoring option, and it's an important year for him. Like Rui Hachimura, he's entering a contract year. In his case, he can opt out of the final year of his deal and probably has a chance to earn the best contract of his career. If he comes through with a big-time season statistically and the Wizards do pretty well, he could cash in a big way. But what his role is going to be is going to be interesting to watch because on one hand, we've seen him be the third scoring option on a very successful team when he was in LA. It was a very different situation, of course. He was next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But also we saw last year early on him struggle to kind of find his way next to Bradley Beal and Spencer Dinwiddie. So I think there's probably going to be a little bit of a feeling out process. There's going to be that in general because Bradley Beal has not played with Kristaps Porzingis yet, and those three have not been on the court together yet. Porzingis and Kuzma played together for 6 games down the stretch last year before they were both shut down due to minor injuries, and they looked good together. I mean, both guys, for their size are very versatile. Of course, we know that about Porzingis, but the same thing applies to Kuzma. At 6'10", his mobility, his shooting ability, he's a pretty decent passer. Those guys played off each other really well with the two-man game, kind of setting each other up on cuts to the basket. So I think there's a lot of potential there, but there's probably going to be a learning curve early in the season as they just kind of figure out how to fit in. But Kyle Kuzma, no question, is one of the most important players on this team.
As a whole, we've talked about all three of these guys, Beal, Kuzma, Porzingis. If those guys are healthy, I would think the Wizards have a nice trio to work off offensively. However, the team ranked 25th in defense last year. Do you think the Wizards have done enough in the offseason on the defensive end, or is that still one of the bigger areas of concern?
It's definitely one of the bigger areas for concern, and you could argue it's the biggest because they were 25th in defensive rating last year based on Basketball Reference. The year before, they were 19th, and after the season before, they tried to double down on defense going into the offseason. They hired a coach in Wes Unseld Jr., who's supposed to be a defense first. They made a bunch of personnel moves that didn't really work out in their favor, and they went into this offseason trying to kind of shore up what they weren't able to shore up the offseason before. All those guys, Beal, Porzingis, and Kuzma, were all part of the defensive effort that was very disappointing last season. However, Kuzma, some of the metrics suggest he was one of their better defenders, based on the field goal percentage players who were guarded by him shot against him. And Porzingis, he graded out pretty well defensively as well. And of course, we know he can block shots. Collectively, though, I think it's going to depend a lot on what they get from the point guard position. Can those guys stop the ball? And also, can they get on the same page in terms of contesting shots in the mid-range? They did a really good job last year of running players off the three-point line. But once those guys got past the closeout, the Wizards couldn't stop them. And they forced a lot of mid-range shots, but their opponent shot a pretty decent percentage on those plays. So maybe it's minor tweaks, maybe the personnel additions that they made, like DeLon Wright, will help, but collectively, it's definitely a big concern. And I agree with you that it's a question with those guys because as a trio, the offensive ceiling, I think, is very clearly pretty high. Defensively, there's questions about all three of them.
Right. I will say this. I love DeLon Wright, and everybody should have a player like him on their team. Just hustles, heady player, and gives you effort, plays good D. Mav, you're up.
So with all the developments and the contributions that we talked about, let's just sum it all up. Who do you think is going to be the starting 5 game one of the regular season for the Wizards? And do you expect the team to improve upon their 35-47 record of last year?
I think the starting five will be Kristaps Porzingis. I think him and Kuzma being the second and third best players on the team, they're going to have to find a way to have both those guys in the starting lineup. And last year we saw them start alongside each other. So I think they'll be the 4 and the 5, even though you could make the argument that Porzingis maybe could slide over to the 4 and you could put Daniel Gafford in as the 5. That's my expectation, that those guys will start. And I do think they're going to improve on their 35 wins from last year. Now, they're going to have to navigate a very difficult Eastern Conference. I mean, last year, the East was so improved and so good that it required a winning record just to make the play-in tournament. So even 44, 45 wins this year might only get you the 7th or the 8th seed. But I think they can move into the playoff picture after missing it last year. So I think they'll improve on their 35 wins and get it somewhere between 40 and 44 wins, somewhere in that range.
How about the rest of the division, Chase? How do you see that playing out? You like Miami to win, or you think Atlanta's gonna, with their changes, gonna? How do you think the rest of the division? And do you think the Wizards can challenge for second or third place?
I mean, I'd have to go with the Miami Heat. I thought the Hawks were going to be much better last year than they were.
Right.
But the Heat, it's just such a well-oiled machine. And I feel like they've got young players that are going to continue to ascend, like Bam Adebayo in particular. I think he's got serious star potential, and he's so young. He's just scratching the surface of his upside. So I think Miami, I mean, they had the best record in the regular season last year in the Eastern Conference, so it's hard to bet against them. And obviously I know Atlanta 2 years ago was in the conference finals. So I'd go Miami, Atlanta. I think the Wizards could leapfrog the Hornets. It won't be easy because LaMelo Ball is only going to get better at his age. Right. But I think those two teams are going to be pretty close to each other. And then, of course, the Magic I'll have in 5th place. I don't know if they're going to get the number 1 pick again, but I don't think they're going to be very good.
Right. All righty. All right. Couple quick questions, and I'm going to let you go. Number one is, do you think Quentin Jackson has, from Mavericks alma mater, do you think he has any chance to get that second 2-way contract on the team?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he was pretty impressive in the summer league. He's an explosive athlete. He's bouncy. He's quick. I think he, in that sense, would give the Wizards a nice change of pace at the guard position. So I think that's the type of player that, you know, when you look at a 2-way contract and you want to bet on athletic upside, he kind of fits the mold. So I don't see why the Wizards wouldn't want to take a chance on him. And if it requires signing him to a 2-way deal, then maybe that's the best route to make sure you keep him in your system.
Yeah, of the guys on Exhibit 10, he's the guy I like. Nice 3-and-D, excellent athlete, excellent, and tenacious defender, in-your-face defender. And the last question we got for you is, when's training camp start for the Wizards?
That's Saturday. Their media day is Friday,
nice.
And training camp starts Saturday. Yeah, they did things a little bit earlier this year because they're going to Japan later this month to play the Warriors for 2 preseason games. So we just talked yesterday to Wes Unseld Jr. and also team president Tommy Shepard. So, yep, training camp's it's just a few days away.
All right. Are you going to Japan?
I am not. Unless they're going to give me a last-second invite, which would probably result in an expensive flight.
Right. Well, come on, NBC. Give Chase a trip to Japan. He deserves it.
I would agree.
I want to thank Chase for joining us today. Remember to check out his work on NBCSports.com. Thanks so much, Chase. I know you're about to get really busy, and I appreciate you joining us. Maybe you could check back in with us, a couple of months down the road.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, and I'll definitely be following your draft coverage along the way.
All right. I appreciate it, Chase. Thanks so much. I want to thank Chase again for talking about the Wizards, and now we're going to move on to talk about the Orlando Magic. We've mentioned the Magic a number of times in the show about how much talent they've managed to collect and yet still can't put it together, and they always seem to be forever teeming with potential. And so this year, the only thing they lost was Robin Lopez, which wasn't a big deal. And what they gained basically was the number 1 overall pick in Paulo Banchero. Looks like he's going to be an immediate big-time contributor. And they also added Caleb Houston, who is a project, but may turn out to be a nice 3-and-D guy down the road. So, Drew, what are your thoughts on the Magic?
I mean, the Magic are still the Magic. They have a massive logjam of potential talent at that, power forward center position. And they have a kind of a logjam of guards, to be honest, too. There's a lot of guards that are going to be vying for playing time. I don't really know what to do with this team anymore. It's like either trade some guys, do something, because you're just collecting talent and it's impeding all the other talent from, showcasing their talent. Talent is the key word for this team. We'll go down the position. I love Jalen Suggs going back to his college days. I'm a Zags fan.
Can I just interrupt? By the way, I don't know if you guys caught the news, but Markelle Fultz, believe it or not, is injured. Again. And also Gary Harris is injured. Jonathan Isaac isn't hurt. I know Mo Wagner got hurt at Eurobasket. I don't know if he's healthy. And, of course, Bol Bol, the last I heard, he is still recovering from something or other. So this team – and Jalen Suggs also was nursing something. I believe his might have been a wrist. But so this team has been struggling with injuries, and that continues. I mean, Wagner, Harris, and Fultz got hurt this summer. They get hurt. A long year in Orlando. They get hurt when the season's not even going. So, all right. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to throw that news in there.
It's good to know, because injuries obviously are part of sports, and this team's already got 5 of them and haven't even played a lick of basketball. So, look, I like Jalen Suggs. I think, for a guard on a not very talented team, I'm hoping this is kind of the third year semi-breakout. I'm still not projecting him to hit his potential. Second year?
Yeah, it's his second
year. Yes, you're right. Second year. So I'm hoping he takes the right strides. It's hard for a guard on a team that's not super talented, because you have a lot of ball handling responsibility and not a lot of help. I'm hoping Suggs takes the forward steps. I think Cole Anthony he's not peaked, but I think we're kind of seeing what he's going to be, which is a decent player in terms of a scorer and a playmaker, not elite, but can be a usable piece. Franz Wagner is super impressive. I remember writing a scouting report on him, predicting him to be better than we think. I didn't think he'd be this good, this quick, though. So he is actually might be battling with Banchero as their best player at the start of next year. I think, having the year of NBA experience, I could see Wagner kind of spraying the first half of the season as the alpha. Banchero will take that mantle over. I think Banchero comes in as probably their best overall player. So, he's going to be an instant impact guy. And they got to figure out what the hell they want to do at center, because you got Wendell Carter, who's shown flashes, and then, Mo Bamba's, shown his flashes. You've got the other Wagner brother who is serviceable as a backup. And then I think a guy that I'm looking to probably move at this point is got to be Jonathan Isaac. I mean, everybody was, before he got hurt, kind of in that bubble year, talking about how he's one of his defensive upsides through the roof. At this point, just move on from him. You have too much talent in that position. He's battling injury. See what you can get for him. But the Magic are the Magic. They're going to not be very good this year. Unless Banchero comes into the league and puts up rookie LeBron James numbers, which he's not going to do. At least I'm pretty confident saying that. This is a team that has no clear head alpha yet. That will be Banchero hopefully in a year or two. So, I mean, in the NBA, it's all about stars, and you don't have any, you're not going to be good. I think it boils down to that. This is a team that's got a bunch of talent, but they got to figure it out, because we look at their depth chart and they have 5 guys at every position other than center and point guard, where they have 4. And they have our all-time, hoops prospect legend, Xavier Simpson, on the roster. So unless he takes over, shout out Connor Youngberg. Unless he takes over, who knows what the hell they're going to do.
Xavier, for those not following Connor Youngberg's website, Xavier signed an Exhibit 10 contract with the Magic. Most likely will end up on their G League affiliate.
Yes.
Maverick, your thoughts on the Magic?
They have so much young talent, and I know they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but there's so many players on this team that I like. it's just going to come down to what moves you're going to make and who wants to play what position, and if they're comfortable playing the role that they're at. I really like their coach in Jamal Mosley. He's a great defensive coach. Offensively, he's still growing. But I know last year they really liked the Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter lineup when they would play the 4 and the 5. They might come out this season bringing Suggs off the bench and maybe having a Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, Wendell Carter, Mo Bamba lineup, which is yeah. I mean, that's extremely long, and that is a lineup right there. But it's something that you can work with. The injuries are an issue. I don't know why they re-signed Mo Bamba and Gary Harris with all the talent. It was still questionable. They're going to be more competitive, which is good. They're going to be more competitive. They're young. They're going to be more competitive. They're still not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be more competitive than they were last year, which will be good for some growth.
Right.
Some growth finally.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have a similar record. Maybe if they'll get a few more wins because of just Banchero in development. But this is a team that might win like 30 games. But the one thing you'll see, and I think this is where Matt is right, is their margins of their losses are going to be closer.
Yeah.
They're going to lose the same amount of games, more or less. But instead of whatever their margin of losses, I'm not sure their point differential, I think it will be closer. So, you take the wins where you can get them, I guess.
Yeah. But think about this. If Jalen Suggs turns out to be the player I thought he was, all right, which was kind of an all-star level point guard, Cole Anthony maybe turns out to be a Terry Rozier, okay?
It's a good comp.
Wagner is I think is going to be a borderline all-star, maybe like one of the Bogdanoviches at worst, but he's a better playmaker than either of those guys already.
Mm-hmm.
Banchero it looks like he's going to be an all-star, and they didn't make a long-term commitment to Bamba, but I think I was very encouraged by what I saw from him, and I think he could be, a Clint Capella like rim protector. So what I'm saying is, I see the pieces here. It's just a matter of let's stay healthy, let's get some reps together, and let's find some continuity. And to me, Maverick talked about going with the Hughes lineup. I'm going to make a crazier suggestion. I'm going to say, let's get rid of Wendell Carter, who I'm not a fan of, and let's move Jonathan Isaac to being my backup center, or maybe even my starting center. Imagine the defensive flexibility that gives you.
Yeah, and Isaac is the best defender on that roster.
Right.
And if you're not going to get rid of him, find him minutes.
Right. And find him minutes, I say, next to Banchero. And make him play, maybe playing a little more inside, maybe adding some muscle might add some length to his career, So maybe he won't be as – maybe you won't use him as a 3 or a 4. I'm suggesting you use him as a 4 or a 5. So the one guy, the question is, who is going to be the sixth man on this team as far as fantasy purposes? Obviously Wendell Carter would probably look like the guy right now because he played almost as much minutes, if not, I think his minutes and Bamba's minutes were very close. And as Matt suggested, they played together. I think Gary Harris is on the downside. Terrence Ross is definitely on the downside. The guy I like is Chuma Okeke. Now, of course, he's behind Banchero. He's behind Wagner, at that 3-4 spot. But I still think you can play Wagner as suggested. He could be your big guard. Banchero could be your small forward, and you could get Okeke in there as well. So I think, or he could even be your small ball center, or Banchero could be your small ball center. So I think you have a lot of flexibility there. But he's the one guy when I look at the second string. Obviously, Fultz also, but I'm not drafting Markelle Fultz. I want to see it first, at least some. So Okeke's the one guy I would keep an eye on from a fantasy perspective. All right, so that wraps up the Southeast Division. Let's look at our mailbag, and we get some good questions this week. Will asks, he says, it looks like the one and done rule is done. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, man.
Go ahead, Drew.
Rich, we had a good phone call about this, obviously off the air a couple of days ago. And when you look at the rules, this is not saying like next year it's going to be done. This is going to be as with many CBA changes that are this big, it's going to be something that happens like in 5 years, 6 years down the line. But this is horrible, in my opinion, for the game of basketball, in terms of the game of basketball. It's great for an 18-year-old who wants to be a millionaire before he can drink a beer legally. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Good for you. This is a horrible thing for the game of basketball. Maybe I'm an old man stuck in a 25-year-old's body at this point, but we're seeing it now. How many kids are drafted high that don't pan out? And you know why that is? It's not because they're not good athletes. It's not because they're not good kids. It's because they don't know how to play this game. When you look at the bust rate of like the top, like the stars, I think in basketball, it's so high in some situations. We talk about, like, wasn't that guy supposed to be something? I mean, we're already talking about Jalen Suggs in his second year. It's like, we're already having the conversation of like, if he hits his potential, question mark, maybe not. I don't know.
A top five pick. Pick.
I
mean, just look at Orlando's roster, and all you have to do is look at how many of those guys. How many of those guys, were
lottery picks,
or first round picks? At least, but a lot of them were lottery picks.
It's going to be horrible, and the reason being is basketball is a game that you get better playing it. It's not a game of theory and strat. It's a game. It's all about feel. It's about momentum. You get better the more you play it at a high level. High school basketball is dead for the most part, and for the highest level guys, because you get the Shaedon Sharps who go dominate. Look, because you drop 40 on a kid who's more worried about his algebra test tomorrow than he is about winning the game doesn't impress me. AAU doesn't impress me because AAU has turned into, well, I've got 6 D1 guys, you've got 5. Let's roll a ball out on the court and see who gets more dunks. That doesn't impress me.
Overtime elite doesn't impress me, and they're getting
elite is a dumpster fire.
Over $100,000, and their best player isn't even on an NBA roster right now.
Exactly,
and that's the guy I thought was you were right, I was wrong. I said he was a first round pick, and I can't even the kid
Montero.
Yeah, Montero, G. Montero. Yeah. I say he was a first rounder. You said he was a second rounder. It turned out he was a no rounder.
He was neither.
Nobody drafted him, and he's not on an NBA roster right now. He's not on a European roster right now.
Yeah.
No one signed him. Now, I think what the Knicks are going to do when they're ultimately done with their Exhibit 10 contracts, I think they're going to give him an Exhibit 10. But right now, he's nowhere. And so that's and if we could even go into Ignite and look at those players and how many of those players are really going to turn into something.
It's a horrible thing, because what I don't think kids, and you could tie this into paying athletes, college, this conversation grows beyond just the one and done rule, but kids that go and get high-level coaching from the top-shelf guys that are being coached by, obviously he's retired, but Coach K, that are being coached by Self, by Few, by Sampson down in Houston. Look, there's no guarantee that a kid doesn't bust. You got to play the games for you to figure that out. But you are increasing the odds because physically 18-year-olds are not ready to compete at the NBA. And mentally, they sure as hell are not. The reason Chris Paul is still so good, while Tim Duncan was able to be so good for so long, while LeBron's a bit of a different case, but why these guys are so effective so late into their career is because they're playing kids who don't know how to play the game. So Chris Paul's like, I don't need to run super fast and jump super high because you have no idea what the hell you're doing. I'm going to hit you with a pump fake. You're going to fly by me, and I'm going to shoot an open mid-range shot that I've shot 10,000 times before and made 10,000 times before. A great example of this, and it's a different sport, but Ray Lewis had this conversation a couple years ago. Forget where he was doing the interview, but it was about why Tom Brady's still able to play. And it's a different sport, so, I won't drag this on, but he's like, to beat a master, you have to become a master. And to become a master, you have to do something over and over again. You have to spend a lot of boring time doing a lot of boring things to be great. And he's having this conversation about Tom Brady, and he's like, it's the same thing in basketball. To beat LeBron James, you're not going to be bigger, stronger, faster. You have to outthink him. You have to outmaneuver him. And if you don't play at a high level, you're never going to be able to do that because LeBron's been doing it for 22 plus years, whatever the hell it is. Tim Duncan did it at Wake Forest and then did it in the league for 20 years. Chris Paul did it in college, in the league. Steph Curry did it in college, in the league. If you're not getting the high-level reps, you cannot beat these guys because they've been doing it longer and they've proven to be better. Sure, you'll get the Bancheros that come in and they're every once in a while, but the bus rate's going to go up. This is a bad thing for the game of basketball, in my opinion, man. Play 1 year, go make your NIL money, which I have a whole issue with as well, and then come to the NBA and hope you pan out. But whatever. I mean, I guess we want to give 17, 18-year-old kids a bunch of money and expect them to go heads up with all NBA talent. Good luck, man. This is going to destroy cap sheets. Guys are going to be spending – they're wasting a full contract. They're going to pay a guy a first-round contract, not use him because he's not ready, and then have to go pay him Anthony Simon style $100+ million going, I hope to God he's good. We just don't know. So this is going to be interesting, man. I'm against it.
Before I go on a rant, Mav, you might want to get a sentence or two in there.
Rich and I will go on this for an hour, man.
I'm gonna keep it really short, so y'all can go on the rant. I think it's interesting. I'm not too hard. My opinion's not too I really believe this with the one and done rule. I understand why it would be good for the kids, especially if you get hurt or a career-ending injury in college or with the. I like the G League way. I would prefer that way than any other way. I think that it trains you to be more a professional basketball player than anything else. But whenever you come out of high school, I mean, let's just think about when we came out of high school. What were we doing? We weren't ready to. We were barely ready for college. Now these guys are coming from high school playing professional basketball with a lot of money coming their way. Their bodies, their mind. It's not ready for the professional level, and that's going to not only suffer for individuals, but it's also going to suffer for teams and overall basketball worldwide. So I don't know. I can understand the positives and negatives on both sides, but it's a tough rule. It's tough.
Yeah. Drew and I were discussing why. Why is the league pushing for this? Why does it? Because to me, it doesn't make sense. It would make sense to basically put a moratorium on these guys to say, to me, 19 is still too young. I would put it at 20 or 21. All right. And they have NIL now, and they also can get insurance. They also can buy insurance so that if something happens, they can get as much as they would from a rookie contract. Okay. But so, I've been thinking since Drew and I had that conversation last week, and I'm thinking, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And then all of a sudden hit me. NIL is why they're doing this. They want these guys to make money for them instead of making money for the University of Michigan or the University of Oklahoma or whatever. It has nothing to do with the players, because the players right now have avenues to make money. They can go play for Overtime Elite. They can go play in Europe. They can go play in the G League. Okay. But of course, most of those avenues won't pay you much I don't think Overtime Elite's going to last. So most of the options I'm talking about, probably the most you can make is, I guess with Ignite, I think they make in 6 digits, but most of your European options are going to pay you somewhere between 20 and 50,000. G League's only going to pay you, I think maybe 40,000. So yeah, you're not going to make a ton of money, but you can make money. But yes, I'm, and I'll tell you what, like if you look at the draft picks this year, and I'm not just picking on this guy, it's this first guy that comes to mind, Patrick Baldwin Jr., 30th overall pick. I'll bet you right now, I'll bet anybody, all right, that Drew Timme is going to be a better professional basketball player than him. And the reason why he gets picked, even though, basically he was kind of like if we didn't have the one and done rule. Because basically he barely played college, so we didn't really get a good look at him. Shaden Sharp's another one. Obviously he was kind of like basically without the one and done because he did not play. Okay, so it's just basically like he went from high school to the NBA, and the only thing I think is going to stop the teams is when they get burned enough, but they never seem to learn. They always pick potential over what they actually see. That's why Drew Timme is like, no, you can't come to this league here. You got to stay there. Don't come out. And so he stays at Gonzaga and he makes a bunch of money with NIL, because he doesn't have the upside. You're right. He doesn't have the upside. but right now, he's a much better player than Shaden Sharp. He's a much better player than Patrick Baldwin. And there's a good chance he will always be a better player than them. Now, if I had to bet on it, Sharp will probably be better than Drew Timme, but I don't think Baldwin ever will be. And so, yeah, the point of it is they seem to, nobody really gives a goddamn about the kids. It's just a fight now over who can get them quicker. And I don't think the kids, what's best for the kids is in mind. Now, if the league really cared about the kids, is they would raise the salaries in the G League or have some kind of special. I mean, I know they have Ignite. That's one option. So, and the Ignite players make a lot more money than the other players, which much love. You know, the high school guys are making more money than 27-year-olds. But yeah, they do make, like, I think it's anywhere between $75K and maybe even up to $200K compared to your standard G League contract is somewhere between 30 and 40K. So then again, a lot of these Exhibit 10 guys are going to get 50K more if they stay with their team. So they're going to end up making close to 100,000. So the bottom line is this has everything to do about greed, and nobody cares about the players. And, you know, and so we get to see a bunch of kids go sit on the bench or they get forced into action and play lousy basketball. Speaking of a kid who kind of falls into this window, Tyler asks, what do you make of the Emoni Bates situation? I'm going to what happened with first of all, Bates transferred from after a disastrous. He was supposed to be the number one recruit in this year's high school class. He reclassified and jumped ahead and went to Memphis and had a disastrous freshman season, which he looked totally unready to play high-level college basketball. Can you imagine if the one-and-done rule? Now, just imagine, just with this kid, and this is just obviously it's a coincidence that this question came up, but think about this. If the one and done rule wasn't there, we would have saw Emoni Bates be in last year's draft, or this year's draft, I guess. So he would have been, well, now remember, he hasn't played at Memphis. We haven't seen him play at Memphis. We didn't see the disaster at Memphis. So he probably goes higher than Shaden Sharp. Think about
Here's what we see. We see Giannis Antetokounmpo literally kill this kid, and this guy quit basketball and literally never want to look at a hoop again or walk inside of a gym because he would be absolutely embarrassed. If you can't play at Memphis.
What do you think's going to happen to Shaden Sharp? You think Shaden Sharp's not much better than Emoni Bates?
Oh no. Hey, Rich, you for those uninitiated, if you really want to get our opinions on Shaden Sharp, go look at any of the draft episodes.
Right.
Rich and I are not on that train at all, but
here's the thing: Emoni Bates was actually ranked higher.
Yeah, he was
Sharp,
higher.
And then, so they would have been without the one and done rule. Okay, they would have.
They're probably top 10. They're both top 5 picks. Probably.
They're both top 10 picks. And the thing of it is because the one and done rule exists now. Emoni Bates is lucky if he's going to be a first round pick. Now, of course, that situation got complicated by what. Who asked the question? Kyle? Ryan? Who was it?
Tyler.
I was close. But here, I'll just read what happened here. Bates, by the way, he transferred after the disaster at Memphis to Eastern Michigan. So that's a bad sign right there. That's basically says, I failed at Memphis, which isn't really a big time, isn't, up there with the North Carolinas and Dukes. And now I'm going to Eastern Michigan so I can hide. But that's not a good sign right there. But anyway, he was pulled over for failing to stop at an intersection. Police officers subsequently discovered a firearm. He's been charged with felony counts of carrying a concealed weapon and altering a serial number on a gun. Whoa. The 18-year-old was arraigned and released, and he's also been suspended by the school. So Emoni Bates. Okay, so I guess my feelings on the situation is this is just it's going from bad to worse. And now, I mean, from a draft perspective, you were already looking at a guy who was probably a borderline first rounder, depending on how well he did at Eastern Michigan. But now he may not even play at Eastern Michigan. And so will the NBA draft him? Maybe. Let's say he doesn't. If he doesn't play at Eastern Michigan, they still may draft him.
I think he'll get drafted. I 100% think he's going to get drafted. If I'm the GM, I'm not touching the kid. I don't care if he's the last pick. I want nothing to do with this situation. I want nothing to do with this. It's a distraction. It's going to be an annoying question I have to answer. If he doesn't pan out, which is what it trends to, then it's just a wasted pick. We've seen time and time again, if you know what you're doing in the end of the first, throughout the second round, you can get good talent. I'm not touching this kid. And he'll get drafted because some GM is going to sit in his room and just stare at a big board and look at advanced analytics from a high school game when he beat up a bunch of 6'2" kids and be like, oh, but man, he scored 40 against that one team. You remember that game? That's the game, man. If that happens in the NBA, I'm going to be a genius. It's not going to happen. And if it does, it does. Look, I don't wish bad upon kids, but it's like, I think people kind of forget that like GMs, scout, like they have a job to do. Like it's my job. And it's like, maybe instead of trying to sit there and be the next Apple, be happy being like a solid like company every once in a while. Like you don't have to be the next Apple or the next Uber. Like it's okay. You can just be like a good middle of the road company who just does well. And we see it time and time again. Is like, would the Warriors draft this kid? Like that's what I ask. I go, with the Warriors, with the Spurs, like would they draft this kid? And if the answer is probably no, then maybe it's like, maybe I don't want to do that. And if the answer is like the Knicks would draft him, then maybe I don't want to do that. Like if the Kings and Knicks are all on board on somebody, I'm basically taking those draft boards of the Kings and the Knicks and whatever they're doing, I'm not doing, and I'll be fine.
Right.
So there's no way, man. You can't touch this kid. This is just a bad idea.
Well, here's the thing. If there's more to the story, okay. If there's more to the story, and if he has a great year at Eastern Michigan, can he return to the lottery range? I mean,
because I think the only thing is with this story is there's always going to be the stain of no matter what the spin is. Why the hell were you driving in a car with a gun? That's even if it's not yours,
even have a serial number, right?
Like there's a baseline of like that suspect is here, and the range of outcomes can only go up. Like at its worst, it's why were you in a car with somebody, or why are you hanging out with somebody who owns a gun with an altered serial number? Yeah. Like that's a concern. Yeah. And now if it goes up to like it was his gun. Now it's like massive red flag. So that's why I'm like, I think that, yes, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a horrible person and he's a bad kid and he's the scum of the earth. But it's like, man, I can't trust you. I don't want to deal with this.
You got to combine the fact that he played horribly last year.
And right. Now if he scored 30 and pulled down 15 rebounds a game, it's professional sports, man.
If nobody he did that, we probably wouldn't have heard about this story. The cops would have been paid off.
Yeah, nobody cares. They'd ask for autographs. They take a picture with him and send him on his way. So I don't know, man. I don't want to make light of the situation, but
right.
Imani Bates isn't even on my radar until otherwise.
Well, yeah, I think he can repair his reputation. And I think he can, get back into the first round discussion, but he's going to have to, this situation is going to have to be reframed in a different light somehow. And he's going to have to play really well at Eastern Michigan. And I mean really well, because Eastern Michigan is not a basketball powerhouse and will not play a tough schedule. All right. So what else do we have on the mailbag here? Let's see.
Fantasy basketball, top 40 players.
Oh, right.
Fantasy pros. These are overrated and underrated.
Yeah, so Ryan here, and we don't have time for me to list them all, but he sent us the top 40 from the average draft position from Fantasy Pros, and he asked, which player from the top 40 do you think is the most underrated and most overrated? Maverick, I'm going to start with you.
Just looking on the list, I don't think he's an overrated player. But just because his usage will probably be down with DeJounte, I think Trae Young is not going to be the 7th ranked fantasy player. And then underrated, I mean, LaMelo Ball is going to get a lot. His usage rate is going to be sky high. I mean, if he just stays healthy and Charlotte just keeps just giving him the ball, and especially if Terry Rozier is traded, if he's continually in trade talks, he could have a monster year stat-wise.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Ball on this list is number 12, and I would be tempted to take him higher. The only thing is, in your immediate thought is Bridges is not gone; he's going to have to do more. But that also allows defenses to key on him more. So I don't know if he's overrated or underrated at 12, but I know he's definitely to me should be in that top 10 range. Drew, what are you thinking?
Yeah, overrated for me. It's got to be Donovan Mitchell at 19. I don't know when this list was created, before the trade, after, whatever it is. I'm going to say Donovan Mitchell's overrated.
No, it says Cleveland. It says Cleveland.
Yeah. If it says Cleveland, that's too high. I've never been big on the Donovan Mitchell train because he's a great scorer and that's about it. Now he's going to be looking at a team that's got Mobley, that's got Garland, who will probably have the ball in his hand, will have the ball in his hands. Jared Allen's going to need touches. LeVert's going to need touches. There's just too many mouths to feed. So I think Mitchell's going to be the guy who I think underperforms. And then I know we have him in green on here. I love Tyrese Halliburton. The Kings, I think, are going to regret getting rid of him for a long time. Not a great team, but I could see him averaging a double-double in terms of points and assists. I really think that's his ceiling. He's the best player on the team. He's the playmaker on the team. And if Buddy Hield and Miles Turner are there still, there's enough helpful talent, just enough to where teams can't entirely key on him. And there's enough talent in terms of guys being able to finish plays. Buddy Hield will hit threes. Turner's a lob threat. I think Tyrese Halliburton, I honestly would I'd probably swap Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell, actually. I'd be willing to do that.
I would take Halliburton probably over all the guys listed, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's Anthony Davis, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler. I think they're all overrated. I would take Halliburton. And by the way, Halliburton, I think, was the number 20th fantasy score last year. And he's only going to get better. It's like you said, the team has improved. He's improving. He's a smart player. So he's not one of these guys that's going to, get in trouble or lose his focus. Yeah, I definitely agree. He was my second pick. He would be my second pick. My first pick, and this is a gamble, a big gamble. And when I say big, I mean big. And that's Zion Williamson. Zion, as we know, was killing it, 2 years ago. And if the guy stays healthy, he is going to be a top 10 fantasy guy this year. And they have him right now at 36. So would I take him top 10? Maybe, but probably not. I probably hope to get him in the second or third round, but I definitely wouldn't take him in the fourth round. To me, that's too late. My overrated guy is Paul George, because Paul George, I think it's been like 4 straight years he's played less than 60 games, and now he's got Kawhi coming back to cut into his production. And then you get, by the way, they have Paul George 18th on this board. And then you also, not only do you have Kawhi coming back to cut into his production, but you have John Wall. So
Norman Powell. Norman Powell's going to get a full year there, too. Norman Powell's
going to be there for the full year. So many players are going to cut into Paul George's numbers, and they're also, with that team filled with all these guys in their 30s, they're going to be generous with sitting guys down and limiting their minutes. So Paul George, to me, is no way a top 20 player. Maybe more like a top 50 player, but I definitely am not taking him top 20. All right, so I hope that helps. Let me get to who asked. Ryan asked that question. All right, we have one last fantasy question before we wrap up, and this one's a little suspicious. This one is from someone named Hugh, and he wants to know, now that Drew is working for Stanford football, he wants to know, was he responsible for the drone incidents this week in Seattle? There was one if you don't know, there was one at the Stanford-Washington game, and then one yesterday at the Denver Niners. No, it wasn't Denver. It was a Seattle Atlanta game.
Atlanta.
Yeah, right. Seattle Atlanta game. So both at the same stadium. And so Hugh, funny question here. Suspicious wants to know: were you involved in the drone incidents in Washington?
No, Hugh, I was not. I spent the Washington Stanford game and the Atlanta Falcons Seahawks game at home on my couch watching them. So I am as innocent can be, but so I miss you, buddy.
You don't get to travel. You don't get to travel with the football team then.
No. I might get to go to a game or two here if they need the help, but for the most part, it's just usually the main coordinator and the assistant. They only bring 2 film guys generally, and sometimes the low guy in the totem pole. Home games, I'll be like, on call if they need me, which will probably be most of the time. But yeah, I'm not going to be shopping with the team. Maybe if I'm lucky near the end of the season.
All righty. And actually, the way your quarterback, at the rate he's getting sacked, that you may actually end up playing quarterback for Stanford before the season's over.
They call me the dual threat, baby. The dual threat. I might not have an arm, but I can run. About it. I can run.
Sounds like you're going to have to.
McKee played well. McKee played well statistically, but man, that he had 2 fumbles lost, and the O-line's got to protect him because he had almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns,
sacks? Like 8 sacks,
something like that. I don't know the full number, but that's what it felt like.
Right.
So he had almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he had a couple of beautiful throws. The running game looked good. We had our lead running back for the game, Filkins, had 100 yards on average on 12. He had about 5 yards a tote. So the team looked good. It's just, Washington's a good team. They're 18 in the country for a reason.
Yeah. Washington thumped Michigan State the week before. Yeah, they're not kidding around this year. Washington football's back. All right, so we're going to wrap up the show. Great questions again this week, folks. If you'd like to send us a question, a fantasy question, email it to admin@hoopsprospects.com. I want to thank our special guest, Chase Hughes, and all of our listeners. We'll be back next week to preview the Central and Pacific divisions. I also want to thank Maverick, who was doing his first show ever. He'll be back with us next week. So we'll see you soon, folks. And one idea we want to kick around is maybe we should invite our listeners to be in a fantasy league with us.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that? We can start.
Absolutely.
So if you're interested in being in a fantasy league with us, we'll have a Hoops Prospects team. Write us also at admin@hoopsprospects.com, and we'll get that started. All right, folks. See you next week.